Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. We will reconvene the City Council meeting, and we have recessed closed session to continue at the end of our regular meeting. And our attorney has an announcement to make.
Yes, Madam Mayor, with respect to the closed session items, item number 1 has been continued until after the regular session. Item 2, there was no reportable action. Item 3, the City Council voted 5-0 to initiate litigation against Bond Safeguard Insurance Company, Lexon Surety Group, and other relevant defendants in connection with the performance and collection on bonds connected to a subdivision improvement agreement associated with tract number 32068. And on item number 4, there was no reportable action.
Thank you. This time, please join us as we pledge allegiance to the flag, and Councilmember Osborne will lead that for us.
You put your hand over your heart and repeat with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move on to public comment. Anybody wanting to speak on matters not on the agenda, please fill out an orange form located in the back and hand it to our city clerk. Items that will be on the agenda, you can speak during that agenda item. We do have one request to speak this afternoon, and that's from Philip Betancourt. And when you come to the podium, please provide name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, indeed, at 1 minute. Madam Mayor, my name is Philip Betancourt, 79730 Rancho La Quinta Drive, La Quinta. I'm here as the official representative of your Planning Commission this afternoon. As you know, council members, the Planning Commission has a long tradition of assigning one of us to come and listen thoughtfully to the deliberations of the City Council to improve our awareness of the making of public policy and to demonstrate our continued support for what's best for the City of La Quinta, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for the work you're doing. Seeing no other requests to speak, we'll move on to confirmation agenda. Any changes from staff?
Madam Mayor, the applicant or the person involved in consent 13, the one dealing with KB Homes, and a family emergency arose and they cannot be here this evening. They wanted to speak with you about consent item 13. So they have communicated to us and request a continuance to our meeting in July, and so we'd like you to consider that.
I'm happy to make that change. We'll just do the consent calendar as amended when we get there. Any changes from council?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 4. Business.
4?
I have some question on number 22.
Okay, so we're pulling forward for business item.
Mm-hmm.
And then on consent item number 22, do you want to discuss it?
Yes, for discussion.
Comments and
questions.
Okay. But it can remain on consent. You're okay with
Correct,
that?
yes.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on to announcements, presentations, and written communications. We have one this afternoon, and that's the La Quinta Chamber of Commerce update. I believe CEO Dave Archer will be providing that to us.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. My name is David Archer, 79869 Derrick Allen Drive, La Quinta, California. I'm here today to report on the latest contract for services update from last year's contract for services. Regarding our new business that is there a little
Clicker?
clicker guy?
Clicker.
Sorry. Thank you.
Someone help set that up. I don't know if that's over.
I'll take it all the way back. Right there.
So to fill the gap for the La Quinta Chamber presentation, they will be holding their annual Officers Installation and Awards Luncheon this Thursday at the La Quinta Resort. My first opportunity to install the new Board of Directors.
Yes. We have about 130 folks signed up already.
Excellent.
So normally we get that kind of turnout at the Mayor's State of the Union, State of the City. So
Sounds like you put a challenge out for me for next year. I'll take that.
how about the next Mayor's Lunch?
David, it appears that it didn't get loaded onto this, so why don't we go ahead with
Okay.
your presentation?
All right.
We do have the written report in our
Yes.
Okay.
binder.
All right, very good. From a new business communication perspective, the Chamber reached out to an additional 21 this reporting period for a total of 47 year-to-date. Some of the businesses that we talked to were Waba Grill, Dickey's Barbecue, Jersey Mike's, Jules Market, and Pedigo La Quinta. Some of the comments that they passed along to us, that the La Quinta location was going to be their largest catering facility. Some other notes not on the PowerPoint presentation. Signage always continues to be an item of discussion. The businesses are always looking for more and unique signage, and so we direct them to city staff, try to educate them on the process of signing, and then give them the appropriate contact at City Hall. So from an existing business perspective, we reached out to 66 existing businesses for a total of 130 year-to-date. Some of those businesses included the Village Gas Station and Market, Red Robin, and Mountain View Tires. Some of the concerns that they're expressing are local events hurt their flow of customers. Another member mentioned that they had a new management team and are very excited about participating in the community. Actions taken, we provided a list of local events and try to give them some marketing ideas to get their name out and talk and get their brand out. From a total business perspective, the list we're working off had 336 from last year off the Play at La Quinta website. 67% of those are retail, 27% of those are restaurants. From an additional economic development perspective, since we last chatted, we've had our 6th annual Taste of La Quinta on March 14th. We had over 550 participants, both wine and food. The feedback from restaurants was very positive, and when we queried them after the fact, they asked if we could move the event to a different time in this year. That time of year is very, very busy for them. We lose a couple of the restaurants because it's around the tennis tournament time. The Arts Foundation is in that time. So the board is considering, and we'll probably move the event to January, the second weekend in January. So other activities that we've taken on. Last time we spoke about a village street fair. We talked about the players involved with that, and we're taking another look at it to implement something in October, and maybe something along the lines of a mobile street fair. So picking 4 areas in La Quinta, maybe the village area, one off Highway 111 near North La Quinta, maybe over by the Home Depot, and find different areas and have a schedule so folks know where to go. So we include all of the community. The shuttle to and from Coachella Festival, we had no action taken due to the short time frame when we were trying to pull it all together. Regarding the semi-annual CEO Forum, this is coming along very well. We're working with SCORE to implement this program. There's going to be an article in the upcoming GM announcing it. We've compiled a list of current CEOs and manager types that are interested in doing this, so we're reaching out to those. Some of those include the La Quinta Resort, local developers, and some private clubs. We have taken no action on the commercial broker item and our Shop Local campaign. We've implemented a best happy hour in La Quinta Chamber of Commerce for the month of July. We have over 19 or 20 participants so far that are interested in promoting their happy hour. The participants will get a QR code and can go online and vote for their favorite happy hour, and then we can tabulate the results and report that at a later event. The gym continues to improve on a monthly basis. We're looking to expand our reach to that, to other areas. In the June edition, we sent it to Palm Desert, Sun City, Bermuda Dunes, and Indian Wells as well. An additional 7,000 distributed.
No more questions, thank you.
From a visitor center, you know we moved into City Hall in December. We're working on implementing the new kiosk. That should be here in 3 to 5 weeks. We're working on finalizing the agreement on that. It's also going to be integrated with our refreshed website, which is also in a staging area, and we're reworking the color palette, landing page, feel, look, and format of the member directory and other items on it, including the event calendar. From an annual financial perspective review, we're in process with that, and we should have an update from our auditors by the end of this week. That's all I have on our report. I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Questions of David? Kirsty? Mayor Pro Tem Franklin?
It seems like every time there's a report from you, there's a talk about signage. With businesses, is that because they don't understand when they sign their lease about what the signage rules and regs are? What is it that they're looking for?
A couple of things on that. You're right on the mark. It is, they don't understand the sign program from the landlord. Oftentimes the landlord's blaming the city for signage issues, so they'll complain to the landlord, and the landlord will say, no, the city won't let me do anything else. When in fact, and this is where we try to educate them, it was the owner's sign program to begin with. And so there's some confusion there. And so I work closely with Les over in community development to help waylay those concerns and help educate the businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Osborne?
Thank you. David, on the financial audit, what period is that ending?
It would be ending, let's see if I get this right.
Is that June of last year?
Yes.
So they haven't completed June of last year yet?
Correct. Or no, yes, yep.
Okay. And they're saying because of tax season?
Well, that's was the latest, but I haven't heard back from them. I write them emails and call them on a regular basis, so.
Okay. Yeah. Year past due. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Pena?
No, I'll hold it until we have the discussion on the contract.
Okay.
Just a question.
Yes.
If I may, in regard to the kiosk, will that kiosk have printing capabilities or any way to transfer information to a digital device? Meaning someone comes in, they have their iPhone, and the information can transfer to that device.
It'll have printing capabilities.
Okay.
We can explore the transferability of maybe, we've considered doing an application included in that, so it would be kind of a mirror of what the kiosk would be in a minor application.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
I've been jotting my notes down on all the moves on the consent calendar, so. Let's move to the consent calendar, and I also actually want to pull an item as well, number 16. We'll start with requesting a motion to pull and table item number 13 until the next meeting at the applicant's request. Do we need to do that separately?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
What do you want to do with 16? I'm sorry. Discuss?
I
or-
guess discuss. I'm not liking the way it's proposed. So if we make changes,
Oh, okay.
Bill, if we make changes to a consent item, should we move it to a business item, or if we are proposing potential changes?
Yeah,
to a
let's
consent
go ahead and move it to business
Okay,
item.
so let's then pull number 4 and move it to business item number 4, and we'll pull number 16 and move it to business item number 5.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll do a motion to amend, and then we'll do questions. Yeah. Yes. Yes, so let's move on to our questions and discussion. Councilmember Ratty.
Yes.
item number 22.
Yes, I have a couple of questions for our Director of Public Work, if he may join us for a second. I would like to know, very briefly, how we got to this solution. At some point, you must have looked at different options to address the problem that we have, because we do have a problem with the roundabout. And ultimately, we picked this solution to move. Would you briefly say what other solutions were considered and what is the rationale that brought us to this?
Back in July of 2013, we actually had the roundabout reviewed by RTE, a consulting firm specializing in roundabout design. There was actually 7 different options that were looked at, including shrinking the center median and a variety of striping options were looked at, recurbing the entrances into from each of the 4 approaches was looked at. Ultimately, the design that was arrived at was the one that was basically got the biggest bang for the buck. It addressed the 2 primary failure modes that we're seeing with the roundabout, which is too high of approach speeds coming to the roundabout, and that's why you see on the striping that's proposed a very long entry transition in order to get drivers to slow down as they enter the roundabout. And then once inside of the roundabout, to clarify who has the right-of-way, we're going to a single-lane entry, which the consultants, we actually had another consultant give us an opinion on it also. It will function as a single-lane roundabout, and that is really the most efficient way to handle the traffic at this point. We confirmed the single-lane capacity over the last season. We had both counts taken during the Arts Foundation weekend as well as the Coachella weekends to make sure that we were not going to create a capacity problem by going down to a single lane. And it works fine, with the exception of possibly the afternoons on the first weekends of the Coachella Fest, because you get that big influx. And so we're gonna monitor that closely. We didn't have a problem this week, this last Coachella Fest. I think partially because of Avenue 50 being widened, it addressed a lot of that. So that's how we arrived at this.
So the reduction of the center median was studied and was decided against?
It's actually one of the preferred options, even under the single lane approach, because but it's one of the most expensive things to do, because you start moving the curbing and then you can't just stop there. You have to start modifying the approaches also, otherwise you still haven't addressed the high speed of approach problem.
And the last question in regard to the cyclist, is there anything in this restriping that accounts for bicycles, or they will have to merge in with the traffic?
Well, they will still access the roundabout the way that they currently do. And the big difference from both a pedestrian and a bicyclist safety standpoint is now you're going to have slower speeds entering and going around the roundabout with this restriping. And so that makes it safer for cyclists and pedestrians right off the bat.
One last question.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Payne.
When we talk about modern roundabout design standards,
yeah,
how many do we know that have 6 lanes going in one direction and 4 and then the other coming into a roundabout?
Well, you know, I can't say off the top of my head. Nazir, who's in attendance, could probably address a question like that a lot better. He looks at, you know, roundabouts across the country more than I do. We, of course, our roundabouts in the city are primarily single-lane roundabouts at this point, but they, of course, do multi-lane roundabouts at other jurisdictions. But I could have him come up and address the council.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
There you go.
Mayor, members of the City Council, and Nazir Lalani, the City Traffic Engineer. I actually do seminars on the web for the American Society of Civil Engineers on roundabouts. I just finished spending the whole weekend updating them. I have literally thousands of photographs of roundabouts, and they come in every different configuration you can imagine. There are roundabouts with 2 lanes coming in on some approaches, 3 lanes on some approaches, 1 lane. They're mixed and matched. A great place to study those is the I-70 corridor in Colorado, between Glenwood Springs and Vail. There's literally 50 to 60 roundabouts that are in that area, and they're still building them. And they have every different configuration. So this one is just in the mix of a lot of different configurations. They're just all over the place. It all depends on what the capacity analysis shows that you need for the approaches to the roundabout. And whatever the analysis shows is what the designers follow. So sometimes it's only 1 lane, sometimes it's a lane with a right turn lane, sometimes it's 2 lanes, going down to a 1-lane exit. It varies a lot.
So they vary?
Tremendously.
Tremendously.
Yes.
So we're not really kind of out left field here. We just need to kind of redesign a little bit to slow traffic down.
Right, and if any time the council has the need, I can present a whole bunch of photographs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Desert. Thank you, Tim. Okay, and I just had a couple of comments on items number 8 and 15. Number 8 has to do with approving an amendment and change order for Patrick Landscaping, for our landscaping, and number 15 is for conserve land care, and that's our park landscape maintenance services. Well, you know, they're both on here. I don't have any questions regarding the contracts, but the comment I wanted to make is there's significant prevailing wage increases on both, just because they're prevailing wage increases and because of our situation and another action by Governor Brown to implement those for city contracts. We're spending more money for services that are not going to change. We're satisfied with the services because the state's looking for additional revenue in some capacity and is forcing these expenses upon us. Hence the reason for this advisory committee formation and the need to say, how do we continue to fund and pay for these expenses with these ongoing increases that we're subjected to without control. That was in honor of Terry. All right, with that, I will call for a motion to as amended.
All right, I'll get this. Okay, Madam Mayor, I will make a motion to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 23, excluding item number 4, excluding item number 13, and excluding item number 16.
Thank you. There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to the business session items. The first is approve the formation and specifications of an advisory committee to evaluate the city's financial needs and conduct interviews and make appointments to the newly formed committee. Let's start with Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Okay. I think before we do this, we have a couple of questions we need to settle. One is I'd like to know how the council feels about how many people we're going to have on this, being mindful that they have to have a quorum when they meet. The other question is if someone is already serving on another board or commission, are they eligible to serve on this? I think we need to come to a conclusion about that before we do the interviews.
I would agree. I would like to have staff do their report, and then I'm thinking that may prompt some additional questions as well that we can address prior to having the applicants come up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Those are some of the questions here as a part of this first piece. This is your opportunity, as you know, to interview applicants to fill this newly created committee. The charge, so this committee is an advisory committee to you, the City Council. Its charge is to examine the city budget, look at city revenues and expenditures, and ultimately make a recommendation to you by January of 2016. In addition to that charge, the committee will take a look at the city's capital improvement program, look at projections at future revenue and expenditures, and also look at revenue options, which includes tax measures. As Councilmember Franklin, Mayor Pro Tem Franklin indicated, the committee size is an item that we're seeking direction on this evening as well. A minimum quorum, a minimum amount of people are needed to achieve quorum, so depending upon the size, these would be the numbers of folks needed so that the committee can conduct its business. In addition to that, we have a compressed schedule laid out that leads us up to January of 2016. So once you appoint and fill the members of the committee, we'll hold our first organizing meeting just to get the logistics worked out, and then we'll be in quick order to move the business forward. So with that, I'm available to answer questions. The city clerk as well is available to answer any questions with respect to her side of the shop.
Okay, initially, questions of staff, besides the ones Mayor Pro Tem Franklin brought to us initially. Any others before Chris's reports? Yes, please.
Thank you. In regards to these meetings, now, at our last council meeting regarding this item, we're looking at 2 meetings a month?
Correct.
Have you guys looked at having multiple locations for those meetings or one location for those meetings?
Right now, we're wanting to do once we convene the group. Those are some of the questions about logistics for the committee members. Certainly, it makes sense for us to hold the meetings here at City Hall, but we can circulate that question once we have our first meeting with the members.
And any subcommittees or anything like that, they'll look at doing that once they've been organized?
Correct, within the actual committee, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, based on the questions Mayor Pro Tem Franklin posed, are there comments or suggestions that you would like to consider at this time? So I have several.
Yeah. Sure, I can start. I think, as I said before, I wasn't opposed to appointing as many as would volunteer, knowing that they're all volunteers, knowing that they are coming into this, knowing that there's a time commitment, at least initially, of at least 2 times a month. Once they decide to get into it a little bit more, that will be up to them. But we also do have attendance requirements, do we not?
We do.
And that would be, what, 3 unexcused absences?
That's right.
Okay. So, you know, if somebody doesn't make it or somehow falls off or can't. And I think we will have some of that along the way. So I think if we limit ourselves to maybe 5, 7 or so, that we may run into that. And we'll still have an issue with quorums if people can't make some of those meetings. So I'd rather have a larger number of people making a decision rather than a smaller number of people. So I would say, you know, let's have as many as we can have.
Okay. Other comments?
I agree with that position. I think at this point we don't know how many are actually present here to interview today, but obviously we need to start with a bigger number because you know, as life happens and people will have will need to attend other business, and also the fact that our commissioners can serve on this committee, I think is absolutely fine. If they want to take on the extra work, they're welcome to do so.
Councilor Roscoe?
Thank you. I'm really impressed with this group. I think we got 14 tremendous people looking to donate their time and skills to this. I do like the idea of different commission members on this because they all bring different aspects of our city to this group. As we know up here, city finances get extremely complicated. And as we've said in the past, different colors of money, so to speak. And I think, you know, whether they're on different commissions already, I think it brings a good manner of knowledge to the group as a whole to understand the finances of our city. So I think it's a great group, and I think we will have some natural attrition. Question though, will we be willing to, or will we have the opportunity to add to this group if someone comes to us late? Would that be up to the council?
I would say,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
Members of the City Council, yes, you can at any time add to the number. You can dissolve the committee. You can ask someone to leave the committee. It's very flexible.
If I may, I'm
Yes.
not in support of adding after the work has started, the cohort is formed. There is a certain dynamic that gets formed over the first couple of meetings. I'm not much for adding people afterward. I just want to have that said.
And I would think that there may be work that needs to be done amongst this group, that they'll be sent out amongst their communities perhaps to garner input, feedback, et cetera, and that could be the source of that additional input versus full committee members. I would tend to agree with Robert on that one. Christy?
Yes. I have a couple of comments. In the past, traditionally, if someone does not show up when they've sent their application in, we don't appoint them. Let's
Correct.
put it that way. We have one of those tonight with Jim Cathcart. He gave us ample notice. He's already been a La Quinta City Council member, and I would prefer that we
Be
give him an
flexible?
opportunity. Yes, be flexible. That's number one. Number two, there's a gentleman applying today, Dick Mills, who's my assistant treasurer. So, and I've talked with our city attorney about this, and I'm going to recuse myself when he comes up for his interview.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
All right, a couple things. Number one, we have 14 applicants, and the council was given a map on the residents, your residents and/or your business residents. And we have an outstanding complement in terms of spread throughout the city and locations. And it's evenly, really, 3 in various categories, with the 4 down in kind of the PGA Trilogy Southeast type area. Number one, thank you very much. Thank you to the residents, the business owners, other commissioners that have wanted to take on additional responsibilities and involvement in the city of La Quinta. It's because of all of you and the interest that we're moving this forward that allows us, I think, with our staff to be able to hopefully understand our position better and help guide us for future decision-making purposes. As far as other commissions, I support having other commissioners on this as well. I think they bring an added, at least, value in terms of the ramp-up of knowledge, and they can share that with other members of the advisory committee. And obviously, meetings at City Hall, this is where the other committees meet. I do support the 3 absent rule in terms of making it consistent with our commissions and committees we currently have in place. But I also would propose, and I'm happy to go through the interview process, but I'm willing to propose, both present and absent, that everybody that submitted an application, we appoint to this committee, because they've shown a commitment and a dedication to wanting to serve in this capacity for the outline we set forward. And as John mentioned, as long as we still have a quorum in these meetings, and there'll be some fallout. I'd hate to start with 7 and somehow whittle down to 4, knowing let's get however many we can get to start and work through that process with the right rules in place, and make sure that we encourage that attendance, so as far as the quorum is there, we can achieve that on our meetings. City Manager, do you have comments?
The only other comment I wanted to make, and few, is this, that no matter who you select, after tonight, we will be reaching out, my office will be reaching out to each and every one of them to find dates that we can then coordinate for the first meeting, to do an organizational meeting, and the rest. And so our plan is if whomever you select tonight, you'll be hearing from us tomorrow. And we want to get this thing going because we have a budget that is set for adoption tonight, and we'd like to get our work underway because we really look forward to this opportunity.
Feelings about that?
One other comment, and I think that we talked about maybe the additional other members. Hopefully this committee wouldn't be permitted or prohibited from adding ad hoc committees. Maybe somebody comes in later and they could put into some committee that they might want to serve on. Outside that, I don't know about that. Chris, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't see ad hoc committees within this committee being an issue unless there's something city attorney that adhering to. So typically it isn't an issue.
No, it would just be governed by the policies that the council has for the other committees.
So this would be the true advisory committee. Should they choose to do their own subcommittees, this is the core, this would be the core group of our decision today.
Yes.
Yes. Because again, it's going to take more than just this group to help educate and obtain feedback and input. So if you're not opposed to entertaining appointing all of them, what I would love to do is read off each of them so they can stand, or we can definitely have them come up and introduce themselves and go with that. What is the,
I
what's
think
the
that would
desired
be. I think that would be good. Then we just make a blanket motion to appoint all those that have applied.
If you need to recuse, you do so. All right.
Do we still have to fill in a ballot for the record?
We can.
No, I wouldn't think so.
If you're going to make a motion to appoint all applicants, you don't need to fill out the ballot.
So much more.
Okay, well, let's start with Richard Badovic. Richard, come on up.
Actually, it's George.
Yeah, George.
George? It says Richard. It says Richard on my ballot. It says George. Sorry, George, we just saw you 2 weeks ago. Welcome to the Investment Advisory.
My middle name is, middle name is Joseph.
Okay, that didn't work either.
But I was very happy to hear that there will not be a conflict between being on a board and being on this advisory, because last month I was appointed to the Investment Advisory Board, which I'm very happy to serve. But I also, I think, have unique talents, given my business background, to serve on the advisory committee. Given all my years in corporate life, I've dealt with the McKinseys of the world. I've dealt with all kinds of revenue enhancements programs, expense reduction programs over my entire career. So I'm looking forward to it. I think one thing I saw on the kind of schematic that was up here, it was like the sources of revenue. And the last thing I didn't see was the fact that where are the local citizens? Where are they contributing? And here's my point. When we look at capital expenditures, why not approach people? Why not have as sponsors and say, would you please fund this particular project? I don't see that up there. And I think that's one of the options I think we have to really look to, because I think it's a worthy option. I think people in this city of La Quinta will step forward and do things like this. So I'm not dismissing the fact that we have to control expenses. I'm not dismissing the fact that we have to enhance revenues. But I also think there's an untapped resource there, meaning citizens of La Quinta. I think they will step forward because we have a great city, and I think they will step forward to help. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Dennis Byerly. So it's good. Look more relaxed.
Hello there.
Hello.
My name is Dennis Byerly. I lived here in La Quinta for about 5 years. I'm the former CFO of the Pinkertons years ago. I ran businesses from 78 million on down and spent a lot of time working with revenue, which is always nice, expenses, which not so nice, but you got to expand, and then that other part that's called budget. And as a guy that's worked in it now for over 20 years, I kind of got a good picture of that. I'm also retired military, and that's a little different budget there.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for your application. And Jim Cathcart, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, is absent this evening. Mark Johnson. Do you have a PowerPoint tonight?
Yeah, missed that all.
It's a water joke.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Mark Johnson, 78370 Via Dijon in La Quinta. I have lots of experience. Although I'm a professional engineer, I have lots of financial experience as well. At CVWD, as Director of Engineering, I'm responsible for a $700 million 5-year CIP, and also participate heavily in the operating budget, which is $230 million. I've served on several boards and commissions. I also serve on the Community Services Commission here. I attend just about every City Council meeting. I've attended your workshops, all in an attempt to learn more about our wonderful city. So I think I can provide valuable insight from a public works and infrastructure perspective. I live in North La Quinta. I want to make sure that all of the portions of the city are funded proportionately. Obviously, I'm concerned about water, and I think the city is doing great things, as we'll see later tonight with your budget for trying to conserve water. I've met with Rita Conrad. She's your CFO, and we had a nice chat the other day, and she gave me some good insight and perspective from her role as the Chief Financial Officer of this community. So thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with all the other applicants. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Frank Cowell.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Frank Cowell, 54020 Avenida Obregon, La Quinta, California. And I'm currently president of the La Quinta High School Black Hawk Brigade. And so I think what I can bring to you is a good pulse of the community. Because we at the high school have a wide range of residents from all over La Quinta. And I would hope to be able to bounce some of what the city's planning on doing off of those folks and collect that information and provide that feedback to you. That's probably what I can help you with the best. I am familiar with budgets. We do have a budget, but not in the $1 million range. So that's all I have.
I think the addition of having that school connection is critical for us. So
Thank you.
Frank.
Thank you.
Kelly Ladner. Bob Leitner.
That's me. Good afternoon, all. It's good to be back here. I know all of you very well, and I've missed not being involved with the city, kind of taking a 2-year sabbatical from either commissions or whatever, and I look forward to getting my hands dirty once again, even though this is going to be a really dirty project. Just a quick overview. I'm involved in 4 different businesses as president and CEO. 2 of them are based here in La Quinta. Longtime resident. I love this city, and I look forward to being able to serve this advisory committee to the best of my ability. And thank you for the opportunity.
Michelle McDonough.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council. Nice to see you. Michelle McDonough. I live at 5440 Avenida Vallejo, which is the top of the cove, and I'm honored to be part of this committee. I think this is a great idea and kind of parlays into what I do for a living. I am a strategic consultant, and I'm hired by startups, and I take a concept and bring it to launch. I work with companies that go up to about $50 million, and I travel the globe. So I would be excited to be part of this and part of the future of La Quinta. And I would just ask, if to Frank's comment, if we could figure out the dates of these meetings, that would help me tremendously since I travel. So thank you.
Thank you for your continued service on our Housing Commission.
I was going to say, and thank you. Since we don't meet very often, that'll work out great. So thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Richard Mills.
Good afternoon, Madam.
Actually, why don't you just go ahead and, yeah.
Stretch your
just for
legs.
this one.
She does like you.
Okay, I was a friend. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Richard Mills. I live at 81600 Tiburon Drive in La Quinta. I'm delighted to be able to serve the city. I haven't been able to do that in the past. I'm a semi-retired certified public accountant. I'm an independent businessman, and my claim to fame has been a problem solver, and so I'm willing and happy to bring that capability and skill to the city. So I hope I come in with fresh ideas, no preconceived thoughts. It's all going to be challenged for the betterment of all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, you're welcome back. Doug Motz, while you make your way down. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Evans, City Council, Mr. Spevek, and Mr. I have my glasses. William. Good afternoon. My name is Douglas Motz, and I want to thank you for your vote of confidence to invite me to this participate in this committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
And Doug, did you complete this application from Brazil and submit it?
Yes, I had some help
As
there
help.
from my wife and
Technology.
staff here. Yes.
Thank you.
So
It's commitment.
I'm glad I got to you guys on time.
Yes, appreciate that. Betty Myers.
Good afternoon. My name is Betty Myers, and I reside at 54065 Avenida Carranza in La Quinta. I want to thank you for allowing me to appear before you as a possible volunteer for the Finance Advisory Committee. It is my understanding the committee will meet and explore revenue-raising options for the city, including a possible sales tax hike. I look forward, if appointed, to review the city's expenditures and revenues to make our recommendations to the City Council. I must be upfront with you, though. I am not at this time favorable to any sales tax hike, and I don't believe the majority of the La Quinta taxpayers would appreciate it either. I think there are other options. Look at the empty spaces, storefronts, and office spaces that are vacant. I would prefer to explore all other options if any exist, and I am sure there are. We have a wonderful city. I have watched it grow for more than 50 years and been a property owner and a resident during that time. I believe our citizens wouldn't appreciate more taxes, and I applaud the fact that you are willing to form this Finance Committee, Advisory Committee, to explore the issue. Whether I am appointed or not, I believe the committee is the right thing to do to try and find other alternatives best to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Park.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. Hey, Frank. Not before 7 a.m., Frank. You call me. I'm David Allen Park. I live at 56475 Legend Circle at PGA West. Briefly, my background. When I used to get paid to do things like this, I was with Oppenheimer, Senior Vice President, Corporate Finance. I also had my own firm, venture capital firm. More recently, I was served on the Fairways Board at PGA West for about 5 years. And I've been on the Investment Advisory Committee for, I guess, 7 years now, or 8 years. So in a nutshell, that's my background, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve further on this commission. I think it's a great idea.
We appreciate you stepping up.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your service.
No question.
Steve Rosen.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council, City staff, and residents of La Quinta. My name is Steve Rosen, 77760 Concha Court in La Quinta. And thank you first for the opportunity to come before you. I am presently employed in the corporate world at in a neighboring city managing a resort, but I am also a small business owner in La Quinta. And I'm really looking forward to partaking in helping my city out where I live and the place I live and love. I've managed budgets from $90 million, created, managed, and I think most importantly, executed on budgets from $90 million with a $20 million CIP, right on down to my own little business here in La Quinta, which is near and dear to my heart as well. So I really look forward to working with all of you.
And thank you. Please share your little business. Yes, please feel free to
free
share.
Plug. And yes, you can meet at LaRue Cafe Wine as well.
LaRue in Old Town.
I can assure you the beverages are better than that of at the city here. So thank you, Brian. And Holder, right?
Thank you, Steve. Thanks. Appreciate it. And Doriel Wiley.
Hello. My name is Doriel Weiler. I live at 52865 Avenue Bermudez, and I hope you don't all get up because you all know me. And I fed most of the people in this room, as a matter of fact, because I own Egg Cafe over in the village. I've lived in La Quinta for almost 5 years. I've owned the restaurant for about 1.5 years, and I've been in the restaurant business for over 35 years, which when it comes to budgeting, it's one of the hardest businesses to keep a budget. So I appreciate the chance to help you guys or come up with some really unique ideas for raising more money for the city and possibly renting some space over there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Thank you. So this was really an opportunity for the future advisory committee to hear introductions from each other. Saved you some time during your first meeting, staff, to have the complement of people and applicants is tremendous, and the skill set is impressive. And again, I can't thank you enough for wanting to give more of your time to help La Quinta and stabilize our future from a revenue standpoint. Questions or comments before we call for?
If I can, I appreciate the diversity in this group as well. And being able to question the norm, I think that's appreciated too. I think it's good to question the norm on what is and what shouldn't be. And so I really look forward to this organization, your committees, and the discussion coming up, and hope to attend a couple of them to listen. Thank you.
Okay, with that, call for a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. You have to recuse yourself for one, right? So I have to make two motions.
Okay. Yes.
Excuse
Just
me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Will the motion include the official name of the committee, the number of members, and if you would include in the motion that board and commissioners may also be on this committee?
So we'll cover all the bases.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yes. So we're going to say 14, but we're voting on 13, and then we're voting on 1. And we're going to include the absentees.
13, 1
So, yes.
commissioner can serve. 14 total. All right.
What's the name of the, what do we call it? What are we calling it officially?
What do you want to call it? Advisory committee?
Advisory committee?
Okay.
Is that our official title?
City Financial Advisory Committee?
Well, it's got to be at least 10 words long.
No.
Stop.
The advisory committee.
Advisory committee.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to form the advisory committee formed by 14 members, and the committee will include commissioners from the City of La Quinta boards and commissions.
And at this time?
At this time, we'll appoint 13 members, and we will take a separate vote on Mr. Mills.
Second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Am I going to leave?
Yes.
And with that, Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Richard W. Mills to the advisory committee as the 14th member.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem Franklin recusing. Abstain. She could have stayed and pressed the button. No? Okay, let's say congratulations to our new advisory committee members. Now, I'm giving you an out right now, so you are welcome to stay and hear more of our agenda, or you are free to go knowing that you'll be contacted by staff right away about our 2 meetings a month and get right away to work. So again, thank you and welcome aboard. New capacity. Yes. We will be discussing the budget as for the next items. All right, we'll move on to business session item number 2, and that is adopt a resolution to approve fiscal year 2015-16 budget and establish the city's appropriations limit. And we'll have a small commercial here. This is exciting. This is a great group.
Of course, all like this.
Yes. They're
Okay, Madam Mayor and council members, tonight is bringing before you a resolution to adopt the budget. This is our third session where we've pondered the budget, and staff has presented some recommendations, and then council gave us some recommendations, so we've incorporated those into the final staff report that you have before you today. Okay, and I won't rehash everything, but on
we presented the preliminary budget on the 19th, and at that time that showed existing levels of service and what we projected our delta to revenues and expenditures would be, and we were showing a surplus of about $87,200 of ongoing revenues to ongoing expenditures, separate from reserves. And then at that same meeting, you were presented with a study that identified some efficiencies with the police services contract that identified savings of about $460,000. So with those two things combined, we had a surplus of $547,200. And then at the meeting on June 2nd, the city manager brought forward a series of recommendations for you to review that would help improve service delivery, help with succession planning, and then also set aside some additional funds into the reserve. And just to recap those without going into all the details, but there was $30,000 for administrative support positions 3, some reclassifications within some of the departments to help with the succession training, funds set aside for the village EIR study, and then contingency set aside to further review some options for enhancing code compliance. Then at the meeting on the 2nd, the last meeting, the council reviewed those recommendations and gave us additional guidance on what to include in our presentation tonight, $50,000 additional for marketing enhancement. And with the recommendations on the previous slide and that recommendation, that leaves $170,200 going into the reserve. So ongoing revenues to ongoing expenditures. At the June 2nd meeting, separate, you also approved the 5-year CIP. And in the budget that we presented to you, the preliminary budget, there was about $1.5 million in CIP projects to be funded with general fund money. And that's been our base level to allocate each year towards CIP projects. Then when you reviewed the CIP, 5-year CIP plan presented by our Public Works Director, there was an additional $3.6 million in CIP projects proposed to come from the general fund for 15-16. A lot of those had to do with setting funds aside for drainage improvements, for turf conversion, those kind of things, one-time kind of expenditures. So those are proposed to come from the general fund reserve. And those are the ideal kind of projects to come from the reserve. They're not ongoing expenditures. They're one-time projects that will be completed and they won't be incurring ongoing costs. So separate from the operating budget. Hopefully you can see that, but this is just a snapshot of where we think our reserves will be at June 30th, 2016, the end of the upcoming fiscal year. And the number you want to zone in on is what's available for appropriation, the $9.24 million. That is the unappropriated fund balance. That's money we have set aside after we have our emergency reserves of 40% of expenditures, and we have money set aside for cash flow so we don't have to budget or borrow for short-term cash flow needs from other funds or from other areas. And then the $57 million is non-spendable. It's not liquid funds available. It's money owed to the general fund or land held for resale, those type of things. Then at the meeting, the last meeting, council also requested that we carry over an additional $50,000 for marketing activities. After that meeting, we identified $30,000 was available, and that's included on the carryover list that's attached to your budget resolution. And since then, we've identified $20,000 in other areas of community service to make the $20,000, to make the entire $50,000. With that, just the final comment I would say is in September, we'll be coming back to you with the fiscal year 14-15 year-end report. It'll be prior to the year-end audit, but we'll be able to give you a better idea of how the year ended. And if those numbers look higher than what we've anticipated, then that will lead to mid-year adjusting those numbers accordingly. And hopefully they'll be better, not worse. I think they may be. So what we're asking today is that you adopt the resolution with the motion to also carry over an additional $20,000 for marketing that we've identified.
much?
20,000. There's already 30. We identified 30 to carry over, but we needed to identify another 20 to make your 50.
Okay.
So if you have any questions.
Questions of Reed?
No questions, but comments. Rita, first of all, my congratulations to you and your staff. This is an excellent budget. I've been through about 18 of these, and this is easily understandable, and you can find numbers where you're looking for them too. It was just an easy budget to go through. My congratulations to your staff.
Thank you.
And all the department directors, because this
Right.
is a collaborative effort, going from
Yes.
ground zero, making it happen.
Thank you. Yeah, again, like I said earlier, congratulations to staff. I think they've done a great job. I mean, keeping in mind that we cut our overall budget by over $3 million not that long ago. So we still have some challenges from a personnel standpoint and other operating cost standpoint. So to continue to make it this positive budget, I think has done a great job. And those on the new advisory committee that are still here, I think this also shows that the unappropriated fund balance in reserves of $9 million. In this budget, we're already looking to spend 3.6. So you can see how fast that can go if we don't get a handle on some of these revenue issues going into the future for our city. But I think this really highlights one of the biggest issues that the advisory commission is going to have to help us deal with in the future. But otherwise, great job on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to echo everything that's been said. This was a tremendous effort by everyone involved. Again, I would agree that it was a very easy budget to read, follow, and we really have to be careful that we need to replenish these reserves, and we need to really, forever he's here, obviously we can have our own feelings about taxation and things like that, but at the end of the day, these improvements are tangible. There's not something that is intangible. What really comforts me is that we are using these reserves that were accumulated over the years, not for consumption, not to cover any budget shortfall, but truly for capital improvement. That is really infrastructure. Is one of the most important type of investment that the city government or government in general should do. And we will do it as it was approved at the last meeting. So again, great job. I really enjoy going through the process, being my first at the city level, and I thank you all for the support and well done indeed.
I would like to make one clarification or request. We allocated $10,000 to CVEP, and we made a workforce excellence and even further restriction on scholarships for La Quinta. Based on their new bylaws, they're not sure they can fulfill the commitment based on the applicants of scholarships, and had requested that we consider just removing the restriction and still have the 10,000 buy-in in that regard.
Remove the restriction with respect to La Quinta, or
remove the restriction to allocate it towards workforce development, since as they look at what their future looks like, they want to have that unrestricted to be the buy-in amount. The city takes.
I would support that.
And I'm comfortable with that if that's the way the other cities and or members are proceeding, knowing that we have an emphasis on our workforce excellence.
The city attorney and I have discussed that my firm, my CPA firm, has an engagement with Coachella Economic Partnership in that we provide the accounting services, but we receive no remuneration for that service. And instead, we have a trade agreement for my position on their board. So I cannot vote in regards to any funding matters regarding CVEP. Is that correct, City Attorney?
That's correct.
All right.
Just carve that out.
So CVEP's already a line item in the budget.
But it's already in there, so I won't, if there's a separate vote and the change of the use of that $10,000, I'm not all abstain from that vote.
Well,
but to vote on the budget as a whole that had already put that money in.
I actually, if you would just have the line item itself voted on separately, that would be the best way to do it.
Okay.
All right. So let's do this.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Getting back to that, so it's unrestricted that would go into their general fund for their use as they see fit.
Correct.
Yeah. 10,000.
In our reasoning for restricting that in the first place?
Because they're undergoing a transition and we wanted to allocate it specifically to what, an area that we felt was working well in the organization. But then we added a caveat to specify to La Quinta students, which based on their grants that do the matching of the scholarships, they may not be able to adhere to that demand from us and don't want to compromise their grant scholarship capability because of this caveat.
If I may say, we're not getting the return that we were expected. We're actually not going to get the bang for our buck by putting the restrictions.
And I'm comfortable with the general allocation at this time.
I guess I'm just still somewhat concerned. If we were concerned to restrict it in the first place, and now we're saying, well, it doesn't matter, but we still don't know where they're going.
Well,
So-
I believe their bylaws in the entry has a unrestricted buy-in, and here we're using that buy-in and saying we're putting restrictions on it. I don't think it follows the rules that they have in place at this point in time.
Okay.
So with that, if there's no other questions for staff or comments on the exemplary budget, thank you. I'll call for the motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2015-2016 budget and establish the city appropriation limit with a carryover of $20,000
For marketing.
for marketing.
Not including.
No, I'm going to make a separate motion for
But you have to
the,
exclude it from this one.
okay, excluding the $10,000 for the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership.
That line item in total, the
Correct.
CDEP line. item.
Contract, yeah,
Correct.
the CDEP line.
Second.
We need a resolution number? in that
Zero,
motion?
2015-030.
I don't know.
Yes. Okay. 2015-0. Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Okay, and I would like to make a motion to pass $10,000 for, as a budget item to be distributed to the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, unrestricted.
Am I allowed to second? Yeah.
Okay, so
Am I allowed to second?
Yeah, you are. Oh, as mayor? Yes. The only one who is not able to participate is Lee.
I second.
Might want to step back.
Gonna roll back. So there's a motion and a second. Please vote. The motion is tied.
Well, it's two affirmatives, it passes, doesn't it?
No, it
No,
doesn't.
actually, no, it does not pass.
Okay. It's the other way around.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the motion fails for the lack of majority. So we passed a budget that has no contribution for CDEP, just so we know that. Okay.
that doesn't mean that they cannot come back. at some
That's
other time.
absolutely true.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. All right. We will move on to business item number 3, and that is introduce an ordinance amending several chapters of Title V of the Municipal Code relating to business regulations and deleting chapters 5.16, 5.28, 5.44, 5.52, and 11.60 of the Municipal Code. So, as a precursor to this presentation, Susan, I am confident that our entire council read this and looked at the red lines and the provisions of changes, so we do not have to go line by line, and you can give us the overview and highlights, because that is our job.
So you're all 150 pages?
I'm looking forward to line items.
One time. Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As you know, staff has been working on an intensive review of the municipal code over the past year. We are now up to Title V, which deals with business regulations. Most of Title V, the chapters, the 17 chapters, were taken from other cities in the county in 1982. So it really needed an update. And as you see by the 60 pages of red lines, we had quite a job to do. This was a labor of love by many staff members, as well as members of Rutan. And in general, what we've done is deleted the chapters that were no longer applicable, such as coin-operated ice machines and rules and regulations for that, as well as the need to get a permit. We have updated the other chapters that we thought it wise to keep. We've simplified some, eliminated the need to get a permit, for instance, if you want to distribute handbills. We've referred to state law where we can, where state law is much more thorough. We haven't eliminated totally so that we could keep our policing powers on those matters, but we didn't rewrite all of state law into our code. And as I said, we've deleted those chapters that we can delete or consolidate. There are a few chapters that will be deleted later on when Title IX is addressed, because things like cabarets, dances, these are things that we can move into the temporary use permit section of Title IX, and we can eliminate them here. But of course, we didn't want to leave a gap there where we had nothing, because, you know, we do have many cabarets that we have to regulate. So, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and City Attorney Erkey is here. He had a great part in this, as did many staff members around the building.
Thank you. All right, questions for Susan or Bill?
You?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Let's see whether we can. All right, so you answered some of the questions I had. Who wrote all this changes? I mean, there's a substantial amount of changes. So you wrote that according to what the state laws put in within this, as well as our city attorney in there.
That's correct. We, in examining each chapter, we looked at what state law had on the matter, whether it was more extensive than what we had, whether it was redundant to repeat it within hours. We looked at other codes from about half a dozen other cities that I selected, just to sample what other cities had. It gave me a good idea of what had to be in a code and what didn't have to be in a code. And then I would write what I thought would make the most sense. I may consult with Les or Tim on the matter, or Edie if it affected theirs, and then gave the final result, or my draft to Bill, who would put in his comments also.
Okay. On a couple of these, I'll go with the summary right now. Chapter 5.24, hotel registration and occupancy. In that one of the things you talk about is a matter of identification for all hotel guests. So if I register into a hotel with my wife and 3 kids, does my wife and my 3 children have to show identification? Because it states in here, all guests.
Versus all registered.
Well, the guests that we had in mind are those who are registering. When you do register at a hotel, it depends, I guess, on the level of the hotel.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always give my identification as registering in there.
That's right.
But again, the language in here states all guests, and minor children may not have ID, or, you know, and so I'm concerned that we're getting overly burdensome to require all guests, including those of who registers.
Yes, that was not the intention. I will reread the language to make sure that we make it clear that it's the registered guest
Okay.
who we mean. And if you'll allow that in your motion for me to make minor language changes.
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
Actually, Councilman Osborne, which section exactly was it in chapter 5.24?
On the section 5.24, let me.
Yes, there was a registration required.
Yeah.
Page 316 in our book.
Yeah, exactly. So, on page 252, 252, registration required.
Got
it. In that paragraph, 5.24.010, it talked
Inscribe
about.
third line. Describes their names and addresses upon their procuring lodging
Right,
or room.
for all guests.
For all guests. Okay, understood. That can be modified as the city clerk mentioned.
Okay.
And that was the old language, though.
That's
The
correct.
current language that we have on the books.
That's correct. It's actually, this is how
It says,
it reads
shall
now.
compare each name
Well,
inscribed
since we're
against a
changing
valid
everything,
government issued
this is what-
identification.
Yeah, no.
You're
yeah.
adding the blue lines, right?
Yes.
And then below that, 5.24.030, access to register. So any city employee, as well as the law enforcement, can look at registration at any point in time, given they have some reason. And I don't know if there's a matter of individual privacy laws that would, you know, I want to be able to have some privacy laws in here that any city staff member can't just go to any hotel and look at the register for just, you know, any old reason.
Especially given our festivals.
Yes.
Well, any constitutional restrictions, and frankly, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Well, for
but
instance, if President Clinton stays at the hotel, I wouldn't want to have access to his room to anybody that wants to say, hey, where's President Clinton staying? I'm sure there's some laws in there that give him the privacy on where he's staying at the La Quinta Resort or wherever he may stay.
Understood. We could certainly add some language there to accommodate privacy concerns, and that the disclosure could only be allowed when in accordance with.
It says for law enforcement.
Yeah, I can appreciate law enforcement.
It would be city business, and what I'm thinking is probable cause. It had to be something attached to a search on that.
Okay. In regards to chapters 5.32, massage therapy business, and looking at on page 236, just your summary on page 236, when you made substantial changes here, it looked like then that revisions which have released the city of owner's responsibility of screening and permitting these businesses by requiring them to hold a valid certification and permits. Do we have the process to review all certifications and permits for massage businesses and therapy businesses? I mean, I don't want to say, you know, once you have it, we don't have to ever look at it again, and those that would provide illegal services can come in the first time, okay, here it is, and then we never check again.
We can always check if there's I'm sorry.
I left.
Madam Mayor, council members.
Please.
We can always check that information. We have the ability to do that. Right now, what typically happens is we self-certify, meaning we have about 80 massage therapists that are licensed here in the city, and we self-certify all of those. State law changed here a while back to where there's now a state process to do that, and what we're proposing here is to shift that to the state for that process. Yes, but if there was ever a question with regards to an establishment or a particular massage therapist, we still have the ability to check their history through the current means that we have that will retain.
They have to show us that certification in order to have the business.
Absolutely, yeah. And what we're proposing to do is we didn't incorporate this into the code, but from an operational standpoint, because this is a bit of a shift, we'll allow for a 6-month period to continue to transition with our existing 80 to allow for one additional opportunity for self-certification to occur as they transition over to that state process, so that we're not hit abruptly if somebody next month, for example, or a couple of months has to update. they can still come in and do that, and then they'll transition into the requirement next time of having to go through the state process going forward. But we certainly understand that that is an adjustment, but we believe that providing that at the state level versus us doing it on every individual massage therapist is a better approach and strategy, and the state legislature felt that as well.
So it's more, okay, all right, thank you.
And if I may just real quickly follow up on that, Madam Mayor and council members, Michelle Mokel of our office had actually drafted a template ordinance addressing this exact issue for a couple of our other cities, and it made sense to bring it in with the amendments that we're doing in this chapter.
No. The next question regarding chapter 5.3, parking attendance. I don't understand exactly what you're talking about regarding again on page 237, not utilizing public right-of-ways. What's the issue with public right-of-ways for valet service? That they can't go across the street and park somewhere else without approval from the city, or they have to park on site only?
Well,
I didn't understand the use of utilizing public right-of-way.
Title IX allows the Community Development Department to issue permits for valet parking that do not utilize the public right-of-ways. This section 538 allows permits to be issued for parking attendants that do use public right-of-ways. So what we want to do eventually, when Title IX is addressed, is put them both in there. Whether you get a temporary use permit or what, I'm not sure what other kind of permit for valet parking, whether you use the public right-of-ways or it's all within a private mall or something, it's all one process.
Okay. Makes sense. That's what I couldn't clear up.
Madam Mayor, along that line, so if somebody were to have a private party in a non-gated community and they were going to have valet service, they would have to get a permit?
Technically, yes. Because they're using the public right-of-ways, so technically, yes.
And how much would that permit be?
No, no fee amount was ever set for it. So I suppose no application has ever.
Businesses do valet.
At some point, how are you going
valet.
to set
No,
the
for
fees?
this, for private parties using public.
Maybe I could help with this. First of all, in at least my tenure here, we've never used Title V in this provision. It's been a matter addressed through temporary use permits, which is typically what occurs with a private or even a public function. But the issue here, obviously speaking to the valet service or the attendants utilizing basically public parking spaces or, basically public parking for that private function. That does occur on.
So does the Quinta Arts Foundation always require a permit? Have they ever obtained a permit?
They obtain a temporary use permit every year.
So that qualifies as this permit?
That's the process.
Parking.
That's the mechanism we've been using for many, many, many years, not using anything separate with Title V. We address that through Title IX and the temporary use process.
Right. So if the chamber were to have a event, and that is all covered through the temporary use permit?
That's correct. We require them to provide information with regards to where the parking will occur, estimated attendance, and we review all of that information.
Okay, thank you.
So while you're on that permit discussion, and this really is under the dancing section, but nonetheless, it talks about the permit expiration date, that every permit expires on September 30th following the date of issuance. Why September 30th? On page 304. So if you get a permit for dancing at your restaurant on October 1st, you're good for a year. But if you get it on September 29th, you've got a day to dance.
That's it, one day.
Is September 30th just arbitrary? Is it?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that was taken, that was put in there in 1982, and we fully expect that dance section to disappear shortly when Title IX is addressed, along with the cabarets and the parking attendants, and a few other things.
And that's upcoming in the future.
Yes.
And
just delete that. Okay.
Yeah. And in here, for the most part, it talks about the city manager has discretion in quite a number of these, and that if someone disagrees with the city manager, then there's an appeal process, and that appeal would be to the city council. However, I found one, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong, on page 307, 5.12.210, right to be heard, it seemed like the appeal went back to the city manager. And again, maybe I'm reading that particular wrong.
Holder of any permit, suspended permit, or revoked permit shall be afforded an opportunity to be heard and to present evidence on his or her behalf at an appeal hearing before the city manager, held in accordance with other sections.
So I didn't know if the city manager approves it, but if they appeal it, they have to go back to the city manager versus the city council you have in other sections of this.
Councilmember Osborne, the excuse me, the appeal process to the city manager requires him, before any appeal can go before you, it first must go to the city manager to decide whether he should change his mind or change what the director has indicated. So no matter what the appeal process says, whenever it says it's going to the city council, it is required to first go to the city manager so that this council isn't inundated with lots of appeals for all little permits. So in this case, that language would still be consistent because the city manager appeal section at the bottom says if you are not satisfied with the decision of the city manager, you appeal to the city council.
Okay, all right, I just saw that one. I thought, well, okay, that's gonna work. If you don't, yeah, you say no, and then they're gonna appeal back to you, say, are you sure? The other, and I, close to the ending, the other questions I have regarding chapter 5.4, passenger carriers. And, I mean, there's a lot of legalese in that, in the redlining aspect, but at the end of the day, I want to ask, does this prohibit the use of Uber? If I pronounced that right, Uber.
We debated that quite extensively, and Rattan actually did some research for us on that.
I'm on page 270.
And we also read all the Sunline agreements.
Section 5.4, just 5 in general.
5.40?
In general, yeah, 5.40.
Page 341.
.010, yeah, page 270.
Oh, 341, yeah. So the short answer is it does not preclude Uber-type businesses. By the agreements we have with Sunline, the city, as well as other cities in the valley, have given to Sunline through the Joint Powers Agreement and an implementation agreement the authority to regulate taxis for us and the authority to regulate alternative transportation, which would include Uber services.
So if there's...
Sunline doesn't support it.
Well, maybe they don't, but we have given them that ability to make those decisions.
Okay.
So if someone wants to become a Uber driver, they can't?
Well,
if Sunline says no, they don't want any Uber, I'm saying that right?
Uber. That's right, Uber.
Okay, like
Uber. If there's anybody that wants to work as an Uber driver, and they have to be licensed through the Uber organization, then they would have to go to Sunline. And if Sunline,
they don't regulate that.
so whether Sunline in general allows.
We have given Sunline the authority to do that, and if they decide not to, then your answer is no. There's no means for an Uber driver to get a legitimate permit in the valley or in the cities that are signed on to that implementation agreement.
And does Sunline allow Uber?
Sunline does not have the ability to regulate Uber, period, and discussion. It doesn't matter what we say they can do.
So you can still do it?
Oh, yeah, they're Uber drivers. It's a constant.
Yeah, I know folks are.
It's a give and take with the taxi, tourism industry.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I think that's all of my questions for now. If I find any, I'll let you know.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody else? So all the questions I had on the dance section, it's gonna go away anyway? Because basically it says we can't dance.
We stand up
We
and
need to leave and dance
day.
before the Lord, yeah.
There is an exception for casual dancing.
There is an exception,
Mhm.
not according to the definition.
Well, what was in the, I can find the correct page, there was an exemption from having to pay any fee or get, an exact language, it's in section 5.12.130, which is there's no charge or fee when the dances are proposed to be held for charitable, memorial, fraternal, or labor associations, student bodies, holiday celebrations, festivals, where they're basically a one-time occasion and not conducted more often than one time per month. I'm paraphrasing there. And I think that, as ridiculous as this is, and I think the answer is yes, this is going to be addressed where it should be in the zoning provisions in Title IX. There is still the ability to have a dance.
Because right now, the power of the dance lies with the city manager. Unless by authority of a permit from the city manager. So, and in that section then, when it talks about those gatherings, it requires special police fire officers versus if you use the example again, party at an establishment and they hire their own security. We're saying here, is that, again, will be addressed
Yes.
in the future?
Yeah,
To be remedied?
Because as the city clerk was mentioning, the permitting process with the temporary use permits or conditional use permits is the more appropriate place where these types of uses are addressed in modern codes. So it'll all get transferred over.
If I may add,
Yes,
Madam Mayor, as the dance regulator, we'll do an interpretational dance up here. Basically, what you're seeing is something that we're modifying to get us through the period until we take on Title IX. And as you've seen some of the arcane aspects of our municipal code, as we've gotten into more and more of the sections, we actually have times when we sit back and just ponder what occurred in 1982 to require all of these regulations to go into effect, other than the fact that if you think this is interesting, wait till you see what's coming, because things were taken from the county codes to regulate things like bees and septic tanks and chickens and horses, renderings and things like that. And so this is an interim measure. Once we get to Title IX, which is in many ways the big kahuna, a lot of this stuff will disappear. But we didn't want to leave us unprotected in case you want to do cabarets or that and we need to regulate them.
Perfect.
Some people should.
All right. Okay.
Ready for motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I move to take up ordinance number 526 by title and number only and waive further reading with the provision that the La Quinta city clerk is able to, is able to make minor language revisions. We're giving her the ability to make minor language revisions.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And you know that this is a lot of work. You want to, oh, yes. We've got to do that. Please.
I'll read the ordinance into the record. And, we're introducing an ordinance amending several chapters of Title V of the Muni Code relating to business regulations and deleting chapters 5.16, 5.28, 5.44, 5.52, and 11.60 of the Municipal Code.
Okay, I move to introduce at first reading ordinance number 526, amending several chapters of Municipal Code Title V relating to business regulation provisions and deleting chapters 5.16, 5.28, 5.44, 5.52, and 11.60.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Excellent. Okay, we'll move on to business session item number 4, and that is approved professional services agreement with the La Quinta Chamber of Commerce. We'll start with staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This item before you is to approve a professional services agreement with the Chamber of Commerce. The city has been entering into these types of contract for services since 1991-92. This particular agreement is for this fiscal year 15-16. The cost of this agreement is $127,500 for chamber services. Some of those services include business retention and economic development for $25,000, producing the DCAM and a community newsletter with 10 inserts with city information for $89,000, operating the Visitors Center, which is now located at City Hall, for $8,500, and an annual financial review of $5,000. Some other additional items that are tied into this agreement include some measurable economic and business type activities, including coordination with economic development staff to develop a standard questionnaire for use with when meeting with businesses, and to be able to track some of those results. It includes visits to all new retail and restaurant businesses in La Quinta and continuation of visits that they're currently making, continuation of a semi-annual CEO forum and regular business education programs with SCORE, which they now house here at City Hall, a Shop Local campaign with discounts and coupons for La Quinta businesses, development of new community events, looking at a best happy hour event, quarterly or semi-annual Taste of La Quinta event, and a food truck event. The production of the DCAM newsletter, as I mentioned, with 10 issues with city support, and then 10 issues including 4 city pages that are inserted, and the operation of the Visitor Center, which includes a new information kiosk, which they spoke of tonight, and information for local businesses, promotions, event information, and links to community information. That concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer questions, and I believe that the Chamber Board of Directors and the CEO are in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. Councilmember Pena.
Thank you. I had some questions regarding some of the legal aspects of the contract that I did go over with the city attorney. One, we referred to this as a professional services agreement, and I think with the Quinta Arts Foundation, it's referred to as something else, although they're very similar.
They're both contract for service agreements. Then they are actually using the same template.
Right, but they're called something different.
Yeah.
So I think that at some point we maybe need to, combine these and get them more in sync.
Yeah, well, they are actually, and after we talked, I did want to go back and compare when we have something titled a contract services agreement versus professional services agreement. The contract services agreement, for instance, that was for janitorial services, was designed to also be specifically for items that may be subject to prevailing wage and do not have any documents or any professional design type work associated with it. The titles were just ones that have been in place for many, many years. They've just carried over. Okay. But there was that aspect to it, as well as some of the provisions we talked about with applicable insurance and indemnity provisions. That's sometimes
good. And the other one was method of billing, because I think in here it provides for monthly, and I think we get quarterly. So I just want to make sure that those were consistent as well. And that was under 2.2 on the contract. Just kind of clean up it.
Right. Correct, Councilmember Pena. It would be making sure that Exhibit B and Section 2.2 match up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess, John, when you look at the difference between the two, the Chamber's providing a publication and visitor economic resources versus the festival is, they're conducting their own festival, but our scope of services with that is a kind of a dual marketing piece versus them producing something for us. We're collaborating on that.
Well, in essence, they're trying to produce something for us. I mean, the Chamber's going to produce some stuff for us as well, too. Some events and things like that as well, too, that they're trying to spell out in the agreement, too. And I'll get to that in a minute as well.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's that's all with that. I think that that can be kind of cleaned up, fairly easily.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, maybe we can have the chamber staff come up, or I don't know if it's going to be Jason or Doug or David. Or all, yeah. Under scope of services, you know, business retention. I know it's difficult to kind of get a program going. It's business retention, but what are you guys going to do to kind of keep some of the businesses? Because that's what we hear. I mean, I think you hear that as well too. When you go out, geez, there's, you know, what are you guys doing for me lately?
Some of the things we're doing, and we've done it as recent as last week. Rock and Roll, indoor golf came to us and they said they're having trouble staying afloat. And so we pulled a couple of the SCORE gentlemen. I met with them and we discussed ways that we can assist them in either helping them market their business better, getting the word out, maybe working with city staff on signage or different color paint schemes, and these are some of their ideas that they had, or helping them attract other sub-lessees. If there's someone that we know, they have a large conference room. I know conference rooms, businesses ask us all the time at the chamber if there's an area to rent, and so we can hook those folks up. And so those are some of the things that we're doing most recently to assist those businesses in keeping them going and alive in La Quinta.
Perfect. And then events. I think we have just a few events that we have to, you know, maybe add, especially under the visitor center. We have a lot of events out here, whether it be tennis tournament, Stagecoach, Coachella Fest, where I think they might allow the chamber to maybe have some presence. Have we explored that so we can kind of get out and market our businesses at those local events as well?
Yes, we've explored those. We're closely aligned with the former Humana Challenge. We are on the information booth there. We've sought the same type of coverage with the tennis tournament. They want the Indian Wells Chamber of Commerce to provide that support to them. We've looked at the Coachella Fest, trying to get on site with them and other avenues. Our kiosk is also going to tie in all the local events, and so someone can walk in, push a button, and it'll have not just the La Quinta Chamber of Commerce events, but it'll have events that are around La Quinta and even as so far as Palm Springs if we wanted.
And I think that's one of the things that we left out here was the Humana is now the career builder, having that. I know you guys are there every year. It was missing here. I think that ought to be included in that as well too.
We certainly can. We just haven't gotten all of our information from the Desert Classic Charities about how they're going to set up next year's plan. So it may be slightly different than the Humana. So it could be an addendum at some point. We just don't have.
Put in annual golf, you know, presidents in an annual golf tournament, or you know, something like that.
Yeah.
Put in that. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're kind of covered under that as well too.
Yep.
And then also, I think you have some events here. What about some of the local stuff? I know it's too late to do a 4th of July, which I think was very successful for some of our downtown merchants that I would certainly like to participate again in. It's a little late for this year, but maybe next year we start to work into that. Maybe the city could help in that endeavor as well too, because it brought a ton of people down here. People still ask about 4th of July for those poor and unfortunate souls that are stuck here in July.
Right. We get calls about the 4th of July parade all the time now as we get closer and closer to it. And I know it's a breakout session for the board at our retreat at the end of August to look at the various events that we do, and maybe there's a way to enhance them and to bring into other events. And I know Wells mentioned at the last council meeting that he's going to do a block party on the 4th of July. Asked me about how they did we got the fireworks done, and that was all done by the La Quinta Resort. So there are talks about additional events and bringing new ones in there as ideas come about. We're definitely open for suggestions and areas where we can add an event.
Yeah, and then the last piece was some revenue enhancement. I mean, we're looking at it. I think the chamber needs to look at it. Maybe some events there that might enhance your revenue as well too.
Yeah, we always look for the revenue. And along the revenue enhancement part, we've added an additional sales team member. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of that. They're doing quite well. They've already brought on 15 new members since they've started about 4 weeks ago. And today we secured an additional GEM sponsor. So we are looking to create a larger member base, as well as enhance our revenue from that perspective as well.
Those are the questions I have. I'm fully supportive, but I just want to make sure that we have those included in there as well too.
Yeah.
Sorry you guys had to hang out.
While we got this opportunity, I'd like to hear the incoming chairman tell us of where he plans to take the chamber in this new year.
May we sit down?
Hank, just in case you need to.
Madam Mayor, council members, thanks for inviting us. I'd like to see the chamber as a dancing organization.
Look at that cabaret go.
A cabaret.
Well, let's not go that far. My vision for the chamber this year is growth. We had some period of instability with membership. We were able to get things back on a solid footing. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about growing the chamber. I'm excited about creating a unified voice for the businesses. I want to promote advocacy for La Quinta businesses. I want to be able to put our business owners in the same room with decision makers, yourselves included. I think we do that through our events, through promoting the chamber, through growing participation, growing membership. And I'm not just necessarily looking at growing membership per se, as much as I am growing participation. I want to get a higher percentage of our members at our events. I'd like to see collaborative events with some of the other chambers in the valley. I think that provides opportunities to put different people in different rooms. You know, we've all been to these events where we see the same faces over and over again. It's nice to be able to see some different faces. So we're excited about that. Excited about the economic development portion of our contract. That's something that I think, and Mr. Pena referred to, you know, retention is a big piece, a big key to that. And so I think as we become that advocate and that voice for business in La Quinta, we can continue to retain, we can push out our marketing efforts and grow, you know, the bigger piece of the pie. That's what I look forward to this year.
And one other question, I mean, and Dave or Doug, maybe you guys help. I mean, the aspect of signage, I mean, we've heard this a number of times. What challenges have you guys heard with signage that it continues to come up?
The challenge is, I think, a lack of education from the business owner's perspective. They get a lease document, they go through it as best they can, they sign it, and then they go to get an illuminated sign, and there's no room for it, or it's smaller than they anticipated because they didn't really look at that portion of the agreement. So we're working with city staff to help educate them and to maybe find a way around it. Maybe there's some wiggle room in it to help support those. A lot of it's misinformation on the landlords and maybe some vendors that provide signage to the businesses, where they have this notion maybe 5 or 8 years ago that the city of La Quinta was really hard to do business with from a sign perspective and just overall perspective, and so they keep espousing those types of things. And so the business owner doesn't know any better, and then when they go to get a sign and there's one little hiccup, they think, oh yeah, it's just what I anticipated. So I think it's both of those things.
I appreciate any reaching out you guys can do to the landowner or the property owners. Mm-hmm. You know, if that's the bottleneck there, please let us know what the challenges are in that regard then, and we can look at those matters. I mean, we've got a great team that handles signage, and I know not that many years ago we issued with a sign, right. You know, and that was a challenge, so we brought that and approved it. And let us know, you know, we appreciate hearing from you guys on what you're looking at and challenges they see.
To address that, in my industry, one of the things I'm a big proponent of is educating our clients, or educating the people that I work with, so that they know what they're doing, the processes they're going through. And I think the chamber is uniquely positioned to educate business owners as well as the landlords to deliver that message so that we don't have this lack of communication on the back end. I'm a big proponent of trying to get together and communicate effectively.
And one last thing, I want to mention that Les and his team have been very responsive to any calls and questions that we've had. So we've developed a good synergy there.
I would gather up the sign company people and invite them down to the City Hall where the chamber office is now located, and tour them through our customer service center and have them be able to talk with staff and educate and message them on what they should be sharing with business owners as opposed to the old way La Quinta was doing business. Yeah. Because it's a new day.
Yeah, and we have gotten some favorable feedback on the new permitting process recently, so good news.
Great news.
Mm-hmm. Other questions for that? Okay, Chris.
Something that concerns me, David and Doug, is that You're a year behind. Is this on the audit or your annual?
Annual review. The audit's next year.
Okay, and why are you a year behind? No, why? No.
We have no excuse.
There's no excuse for that.
Correct.
You know what? You're absolutely right. There is no excuse for that. And that puts the onus on us when we're sitting here giving you $5,000 for an annual financial review, which I assume we gave you last year too.
Okay.
I am not a happy camper about that.
Understand.
So I'm hoping it's not going to happen again. And when do we anticipate we will get that?
I anticipate by the end of this week.
Do the outgoing and incoming chairs agree?
Regarding the timing?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Without a doubt. I hear that. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
For council.
Can we go on and make a motion? To approve a professional service agreement with the La Quinta Chamber of Commerce and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will see you on Thursday. Luncheon. All right, move on to business item number 5, and that is approve parameters governing newly created alternate positions on city boards and commissions. I pulled this because it was a little bit nebulous in terms of being consistent with our board and commission. If you look at page 153, under the term, which is really right in the middle of the page, it just basically says that they're appointed forever. And I think we should parallel the existing 3-year, our commissions are now 3-year terms. We should appoint alternates for the same 3-year terms and make them apply if they would like to continue in that capacity unless there's a vacancy that they fill.
So Madam Mayor, so they finished the term that they were, that they came into. I mean, again, as an alternate. So if someone quits, the alternate takes over that seat, and they finish the term as from the person that they replaced.
That's correct. The reason I didn't set a term for alternates is because they could go 3 years, 5 years, 10 years as an alternate and never fill a seat. And as alternates, they don't act on any items, they don't vote. So it seemed more efficient to keep them on as long as they were willing to act as alternates until they did fill a seat, at which term they would have the remaining term of the person whose seat they are filling. So that's the reason behind that.
And based on our appointment of an alternate, does that mean if there's an alternate 1 and 2 and a vacancy becomes available, that person automatically moves in? Do we formally appoint them onto that commission should the need arise?
No, the way you set it up is if you appoint 2 alternates, you do number them at time of appointment, and then we take that order of filling vacancies. We don't have to bring it back to you again at another meeting to reaffirm what you've already decided.
I guess I look at it as if we're consistent with the terms of the commission, which would mean they can serve 2 3-year terms that have to take a year off before they come back, even though they're not serving in a voting capacity. The reason we set terms anyway is to give others an opportunity and to just keep options open in terms of other applicants that might present themselves should that term expire. And while I appreciate someone sticking it out for 3, 6, 5 years and never filling a vacancy, that's just, I think it's a lot to ask. And at what point do they decide they don't want to be that person anymore, that alternate? Then we're putting the onus on them of resigning from something they voluntarily chose to do versus us terming them based on the rules. I'm just throwing it out there as a consideration.
So, again, so you're asking then that the alternates are voted on annually?
No, as we assign them, they'd be under the same 3-year position.
Oh, I agree. Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Give the alternates a 3-year term. And if they're not chosen in 3 years, then they're done. And then if they want to reapply, they can reapply. I agree.
That way, if we choose other alternates, based on the change of the city and the needs that we have, that we might want a different candidate at that time, I don't know, I'm just.
I think that's a great idea.
Making it consistent.
So moved.
So the motion is to approve the parameters governing newly created alternate positions on city boards and commissions, keeping the terms consistent with the commission. Okay, there's a motion and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're through. We'll move on to study session. We have 2 items this evening. The first is our water reduction strategies for 2015-2016.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. This report is going to be given by Steve Hallett, Golf Parks Manager, as well as James Lindsay, Maintenance Manager. That was too fast on the intro. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. So we're here to discuss the water usage and strategies we're going to undertake. As a little background, as you all know, the governor declared a state of emergency and imposed a mandatory water restriction statewide of 25% of potable water use for the Coachella Valley. That's a 36% use. So to go in May 12, 2015, CVWD adopted the ordinance with mandatory restrictions as well as recommendations. So I'm going to go over the restrictions. These are the restrictions that pertain to what we're doing. There's some other restrictions that weren't added on here, like asking for water at a restaurant or having your linens cleaned at a restaurant, at a hotel. These items for the restriction include no running of the irrigation system within 48 hours of measurable rain. Ornamental turf in the streets and medians is strictly prohibited, so that is in force right now. Regulations for new construction using more water efficient irrigation systems. No increase in overseeding up until now. CVWD has given an extra allocation in the winter months for people wanting to overseed. That extra allocation of water is no longer available. Only recirculating fountains and water features are allowed. All of our water fountains and water features are recirculating, but we still went ahead and shut down the water fountains here in front of City Hall, as well as the entrance water features on Highway 111. Broken sprinklers shall be repaired within 24 hours. The old mandate was within 72 hours. You are not allowed to run an irrigation system so as it causes any runoff into the streets or sidewalks. You are only allowed to use a hose for washing cars, vehicles, windows, in buildings only if the hose has a shutoff valve, and washing of hard surfaces is strictly prohibited except in instances of health, safety, and sanitation. Excuse me. So then we go into the recommended activities. These will not have fines imposed. If the previous slide, if any of those are violated, those fines will be imposed. But these are the recommended activities. So the governor, he issued that brown turf, you cannot cite for that as a violation as a water savings measure. CVWD recommends that we still maintain bushes and trees. Draining of swimming pools, except again for health, safety, and sanitation. Use of pool covers, this is to reduce evaporation. There are also some chemical products out there that people can add to their pools that reduces evaporation that people are trying out and testing. HOAs are recommended to adopt water restrictions within their CCNRs. Overseeding, of course, is discouraged. Spray irrigation of annual flower beds. So this is spray irrigation. So if someone does want to put in annual flower beds, it would have to be drip or subsurface irrigation, but no spray irrigation of flower heads as a recommendation. Non-functional turf is discouraged, and this is some of the action points we're going to discuss here. Smart controllers are encouraged. We have many residents have these smart controllers, as well as our irrigation systems for the parks and L&L district and Silver Rock. Decorative water fountains are discouraged, and CVWD asks that we limit our irrigation from sunset to 10 a.m. So going back to the violations, which was the two slides before, if there's any violations of those, the first violation will be a written notice, second will be $50, third $100, fourth $200. These will be imposed on your monthly water bill. So now we get to the monthly water bill, and this is what we will be looking at. This is based on an average La Quinta resident having an allocation of 4,300 cubic feet of water per month. This is broken out in the first of that 43 is 10, and that 10 is the first tier. That's 1,000 cubic feet of water. This is to take care of your water within the house, your living water. That's why it's at Tier 1. Tier 2 is what CVWD considers as your exterior water usage. This is for your pools and irrigation. And so this 3,300 cubic feet is where we need to do our water reductions. So we need to reduce this by 36%. So based on a bill last month, if you used your full 100 cubic feet of water, your bill would be $47. If you'd use that same amount of water next month, your water bill is going to be $76.88. So there's where our 36 reduction comes into play, and that's how what we're going to discuss with some action items. But first, let's talk about some of the things that the city has already done. Council has been working closely with CVWD for quite some time, going back to 2004 during the development of Silver Rock Resort. CVWD and the city worked together to impose that Silver Rock would be built with 110 acres of turf. So it was restricted down compared to some other courses in the valley. Also during, say, the recent canal relocation, we also eliminated some additional turf with the canal relocation. In addition to that, the city council elected many years ago to discontinue overseeding in non-playable areas during the winter months. This not only saved on seed costs, but also water. The Civic Center campus and Fire Station 70 and the police substation back in 2011, City Council moved forward with a water conservation project to reduce the turf in these three areas, and that's saving about 1,600,000 gallons of water per year by that turf reduction. Additionally, at Velasco Park and Eisenhower Park, there was turf that went between the fence and the curb around the perimeters of both those parks. That turf was removed, the irrigation was capped, and decomposed granite was put in there in its place. Also, council a couple years ago elected to provide no overseeding except for areas that were revenue generating, such as the rental area at La Quinta Park, Fritz Burns Park, and the Civic Center campus. For this year, we are only recommending that we oversee the Civic Center campus. That's in the budget, and we are not going to increase our water usage. We're going to stay within our 36% reduction for the Civic Center campus.
Madam Mayor and City Council, what are some of the strategies that we're going to be using to meet the state and CVWD goals? Well, the first one would be to reduce the water consumption in the parks and the street landscaping to the budget amount, and this will or may result in plants being lost, brown turf, and general of poor parks and street aesthetics overall. Staff has reviewed the March 2015 data, and we found that within the city we have 144 meters, and out of those meters, if you're referring to the pie chart here, we have 2 as excellent, 124 as efficient, 7 inefficient, 10 excessive, and 1 wasteful. We have located and addressed the wasteful meter and made the repairs there. The 10 excessive, we've also located and identified those, and 50% of those have also had the made adjustments there. 7 of the inefficient ones we've also adjusted and have to shut some water down in those areas. As you can see from the pie chart, we have 86% efficiency, but as we are moving forward and making the reduction to the 36%, we will be looking at approximately 56% efficiency, meaning that another 44% will be inefficient in our water. The second strategy would be to convert turf to Desert C.A.M to the extent that funding is available. And at doing this, one of the things that we're looking at doing once again is the Civic Center's Campus Park turf conversion, which would result in a cost of approximately $470,000, and this will be coming from the general fund. The Madison Street median landscape conversion of approximately $1.3 million, and again, the general fund. This is from the unappropriated revenue. Fritz Burns Park turf is at $250,000, and the fire station turf at $220,000, and this will be from a fire fund. And then we're also looking at, for additional years out, approximately $500,000 a year. The third one is looking for opportunities to convert city facilities from potable water to the Colorado River water or recycled water. And in doing this, some of the challenges that we will be facing is getting the water to the lakes. And CVWD is planning on bringing some of the canal water to the La Quinta Resort, and by doing so, we'll be able to utilize part of the existing pipelines that's within Cali Tampico. But still, the challenge that you will be facing is providing the necessary pumping of the water out of the lakes and converting the irrigation systems. The fourth would be to revise the city development standards to restrict water use for future development. And this would be where we would be asking council to consider requiring front yard and the rear yard developers not to put in any turf for their model homes, prohibit use of turf in their front yards for new residents, and prohibit turf in locations adjacent to perimeter streets and sidewalks. Reduce turf grass coverage to more than 25% of any projects. And we would also be asking that the council look at providing homeowners and HOAs free landscape plan projects review.
That concludes our staff report. We're here to answer any questions. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions of staff?
If I can, thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things that I had a meeting with our city manager today in regards to the parks. And the parks, whether it be La Quinta Park or Colonel Mitchell Page, I don't know how the school district is going to handle some of this stuff on like Colonel Mitchell Page School, where we have all the flag football, and I mean that is full of kids during those seasons. And with these water shortage or these cuts, staff projects these parks to go to potentially dirt with no water to this grass. And one of the things I suggested is perhaps with the CVAG TAC meeting, with all the city managers, those city managers that have cities use CBWD water, perhaps they can go to the water district as a group to say, what can we do in our parks? Because, I mean, all of us have, you know, whether it be Palm Desert or La Quinta or other cities, have a tremendous amount of kids playing in these parks. Whether, again, soccer, football, whatever it may be. And if the plan is that they're going to have to play on dirt, then I would hope it's an even playing field between all of our cities. I mean, some cities may have the wherewithal to say, I don't care, we'll triple our budget for water and still have green parks. Others of us can't. But just wanted to see what you guys thought about asking Tom, Frank, to go to CVAG on the TAC group and look at the parks as an issue in general.
Well, quick question on that. I mean, what's the caveat under our joint use agreements and the school district's requirements for their turf? Is there still an expectation of 36% if they're in CBWD's district?
I believe so, yes, yes, because it is on potable water, and the irrigation systems and the water expenses are entirely on the school district. So this is something that we're going to have to work closely with them. Our contract for parks only provides for the mowing of these facilities, mowing and the lighting.
That would be a potential 2-by-2 discussion and/or staff to staff with the districts to really find out what their plan is. I would say.
Yeah, that's a great idea. The 2-by-2 will be starting up again, I believe, in September. Right. I think is when our next meeting will be. And so we can bring that up at the school district. But I think this is a good issue for all the city managers to work together on with the water use on the parks. And I look forward to the aspect of canal water and non-potable water. Whether we bring that in here for the campus here, but is there a line running down the wash where some of that could be used for the La Quinta Park irrigation? Or that's reclaimed water, I think, going down the wash.
It's canal water that, I talked to Mark Johnson about that, and they send it to Palm Desert, and they mix it with reclaimed or recycled water, and then they ship it out to the golf courses. Is basically what they're doing with it. The challenge, and the pipe does run on the north side of the channel. We had to miss it when we were building the Adams Street Bridge, and so I know it's there.
Right.
The problem is that you have to, because the water isn't under pressure, you have to gravity it somehow to your site, and then create it, and then have enough room for an irrigation lake, and then a pump house to pump out to the. That's where the problem lies with that. So it works really well for farming and for golf courses, but it's really hard. And if you happen to have a lake at your park site, then it's possible. But otherwise, it's going to be really difficult.
So when you mentioned in the report regarding the Civic Center Park and the need then to convert, if we converted our campus lake into an irrigation lake, that's similar to the process that we undertook or approved with the Merva State Lake, where it needed to get depth and size in order to accommodate both the irrigation and the gravity to be fed and used.
Correct.
And just one last comment. The meeting at CBWD we had a month or two ago regarding water usage, you guys did a fantastic job. You really did an excellent job representing the issues for all cities. And the aspect of the fountains and the circulating water, you had brought that up, Steve, and that's why it's in here. And the aspect of water for things like the dog parks, for safety and just having the clean area, health. Again, you guys brought that up, otherwise it may not have been in here. So I want to thank you guys for what you did at that meeting and bringing up these points that they then put into the program.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question about, we have 144 meters. And
roughly. That's the present count.
So we are north of 100.
Yes.
And it kind of becomes impractical to expect a single entity organization can have a micromanagement staff of 144 or north of that meters. Have we approached the water district and perhaps look, given our circumstances, to look at averaging our water usage across all our meters as we are indeed a single entity versus 144? Do we get 144 bills, by the way? We do get 144 bills. Yes.
I signed those checks.
Yeah.
But you guys brought that up at that meeting too, with the general manager and Jim Barry.
And I think it's, I'm not sure exactly what the challenge is. I have a feeling it's administrating. They can't, we're still waiting for them to give us an analysis of our total water usage as a city. That's why I can only say that we have 144 meters that we know of, because they can't tell us exactly how much water they're sending to us. We're still waiting for that information. So we can certainly circle back to them and see if they're willing to, for the large users like us, to do that, because that's exactly the flexibility that would help us in being able to, allocate more water to the playing fields versus, some of the other areas that aren't as critical.
And I think if the cities come together, we'll be able to have a better voice to go to the water district in that regard, because Palm Desert's going to have the same issue.
Right.
And the other cities are going to have the same issue.
And some other, I'm sure there's some other organization, private organization may have the same issue as well. They may have north of 100 meters.
The school district.
Right? So I think that is worth having a discussion at some point. Because again, if we do cut 36% across the entire organization, that definitely meet the mandate of our governor, although who knows what the governor really wants, because it must be nice to be up there and just mandate without telling anyone how to pay for it. Just don't allocate any incentive, any way to pay for it, and then see what happens. So that must be nice.
Christy, go ahead.
We've talked around this a little bit, but I don't see this as a problem that's going to go away. So in light of that, I think we should really, really, really be investigating artificial turf. They have it on football fields. Professional football players play on it. And if we were to put a pencil to that, and I know it's expensive, however, somehow there has to be a break even and then go forward point on it, and I don't know what that would be, but I'm amazed at the disservice we're going to have to do to our young people. And I think that we really, really, really need to investigate the cost of artificial turf.
If I may, this is an area that we have looked at and that I personally have experience with, having a son who played competitive soccer throughout Southern California, and he has played on many artificial fields that were fantastic. What ends up happening is the fields retain too much heat. So say in Chino Hills when we played out there, it was 90 degrees and the kids couldn't play on the field because their feet were too hot. They were turning on the sprinklers still, even on artificial turf, to try to cool it down, and then it became like a sauna. So I think the major obstacle for here in the valley, why no one has been able to do it, is because of the heat that these fields generate, and it just doesn't become playable.
Okay,
even in areas where it is cooler.
I can appreciate that, but I think you did that a long time ago, and maybe there's new technology that has come forth. I have artificial turf in the backyard, and the people who installed it said this can get hot in the summertime, so if you have a dog, it's fine. I mean, I walk on it all the time when it's 112 degrees, and there's not a problem. I think a lot of it has to do with the quality of the turf that you get, too. So I would really, really, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'd really, really like to do a thorough investigation of what it costs.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Why is the exemption given to custom homes? Page 385, where it says prohibit use of shrub and front yard landscaping areas for all new residential units, except custom homes. Oh, hi, Les.
Council, this is one area that I chimed in on this. We're trying to provide some criteria for consideration to see in the actual area. Custom homes are a little bit more difficult for us on a review process. If it exceeds 5,000 square feet in size, it is different from our standard residential homes, meaning that they have to go through a review process with the water district and with the city, whereas a home that has less than 5,000 square feet of landscape area is exempt from that process. So we wanted to keep that process still in place going forward, only because a lot of times the larger custom homes have a large area, much larger area than a typical residential home. So the percentage side of it can, it really can depend upon the landscape environment they're creating. So we left that open, or without putting anything in our suggestions to you. Certainly we're welcome to, we want to hear your feedback on that. But what we have found historically is on the custom homes, they're much larger lots, and their landscape environment is usually quite a bit different from a typical standard residential home. And actually, a lot of times the turf area, especially the newer homes that we've seen, is very limited. It's usually, like there was one I was looking at the other day, it actually was much more of a desert scape environment. It probably was well below the standard requirements for maximum water usage that we would typically see through our Title 8 provisions and through CBWD's standards. So we typically don't see it exceeding 25%, I guess is my point, but we're certainly open to your guidance and direction regarding that if you'd like to see it consistent.
Well, just the recommended wording here provides for it makes it, the perception is it's okay if they use it versus stating that they may be exempt due to the provisions already in place and or the review requirements of maybe just rewording it, because on the surface it just looks kind of discriminatory, I think.
Understood. That wasn't our purpose at all.
No, and I didn't think it was. That's why I asked the question. Thank you. Other recommendations?
Quick comment, and getting back to the 144 meters, perhaps, or more, perhaps we could send out a letter under the mayor's signature to the board of CBWD, their elected officials, saying this is something that we certainly would like to have you look at from a elected standpoint, because it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. Yeah. And I know that staff has been talking to staff, but maybe it's time the elected officials talk to the elected officials and have them generate some stuff there as well too.
I'm happy to do that, but is it what you said, Tim, was that they still haven't defined that completely? They're still trying to...
We were waiting. They promised us an analysis of, our excessive and inefficient water uses, our total bill, and we're still waiting on that. And so they don't have a way easily anyway to tell us what our total water usage is as a city. So when we get that information, we'll be able to, make sure our numbers jive with what they're giving us. Okay. But it sounds like either the letter or the city manager, myself, could meet with the general manager of the water district and see if there is any leeway on this ruling. They did mention while we were at the meeting, Councilmember Osborne was at, that apparently a commercial user tried to do the same thing, try to get credit for using less water on his interior, and he was trying to apply it to his exterior usage, and they actually I think went to court over it, and they told him no, and so that's why they feel pretty justified in saying that we don't get to basically switch our uses to meet our needs.
We also provide quite a bit of a public service, so we are really reaching out the entire community. Having kids playing on dirt, it is not something that we can accept. It is like if somebody comes in and start measuring out of each faucet in our own homes, right? It is like this big city or big home that has different faucets. Why can we be efficient across
all our meters and not be penalized on one because we have to provide a certain level of water in that area.
And if I can, and that's why I was thinking that CVAG TAC meeting where all the city managers are there in one room, to approach that as a group, because they're all going to have the same challenge. Then go to the water district and look at that. I think that's probably going to be the best case.
You've got 3 different water districts that are represented on CVAG.
Right, I mean, the city of Coachella has their own water district, city of Indio has their own water district, so I don't know how they're going to be, but whether it be us, Indian Wells, Palm Desert, I don't know, Rancho Mirage, you know, if they use CVWD as well. So maybe, I mean, those 4 cities alone to meet with the general manager, I think might give us a look, because all of them are going to be facing the same problem with the parks and the kids, and nobody wants all the kids running around playing football in the dirt.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if we can look at all of them together and then make a 36% cut, maybe we can save some of our parks.
And Steve, I'm sure you've looked at alternative grasses that don't require as much water.
Yes, the biggest issue is our sports fields. Like the campus, same grass, but it doesn't have the impact. We don't have 1,000 kids running across it every day, so it's easier to keep the campus green, whereas our sports fields are a whole different. And Bermuda grass is pretty much where there's some hybrid varieties. When Silver Rock was built, we used a hybrid variety that's there, and we found out during transitions it didn't transition well, so now we've transitioned that hybrid back to a standard that's used throughout the valley. So.
Well, then why don't we see if this water analysis is coming soon, have that interpreted and compare that with our rates that we're paying and our usage. And by that time, if there hasn't been an exception made or a definition, definitely I would say let's approach that from a board standpoint and to see if we can get something out of them that's a little bit more measurable for us. You know, when we look at what we're paying for water, and Rita, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, because here we're proposing on CIP turf reductions and projects totaling $2.247 million to save 30. I almost feel like I'd rather keep everything green, and when we get to 2.2 million, no more. And fine, you know, it's a catch-22. It's like we're spending so much more money to meet the obligation. You know, resources, just right. But we're on the right track. You're looking at everything that's out there. Hopefully, some of our residents are providing their input and feedback. I know they have on fountains, and as they see streets that are kind of flooded with sprinklers, they're snapping pictures and sending them our way. So that's good that we've got an engaged community.
And of course, if I may, Madam Mayor, if we go at page 399, attachment 4, then we also see where the money is coming from.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that is concerning.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yes, please.
Okay. I totally agree with Councilmember Osborne with respect to United We Stand. All the city, those 4 city managers or get together, make an appointment, and go talk with Jim Barrett. Because this is just, it's silly, it's goofy, and it's costing our city, and it's got to cost all the other cities. I mean, if we've got 144 plus meters, but Palm Desert has to have probably more than that, or at least. So I think that's worth a try. I think the letter's a really good idea. And then, this is a little bit off topic, but James, I want to congratulate you because I read all your little reviews that you get in terms of servicing the people in our community, and it's almost always excellent, and good job.
Thank you. Go request.
Yes.
Just to wrap up, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that the ordinance does have an expiration date, that it's in February of 2016. So if we get more rain, I assume that the state is going to do some sort of announcement at that time, whether or not they continue with the stage 3 or something else. So this.
It's a fluid, pun intended.
Yes, yes.
It's a slow.
So.
Well,
Exactly.
El Niño's on its way, so we'll
Right.
El Niño brings it.
So summer rain's great for this, not so great for the stormwater issue, but Yeah.
Yes, all right. Do you have a sense of our input
Well,
and feedback?
it was, the only thing I wasn't clear on was on strategy number 4, do you want us to look more closely at the development standards and bring that, and have something come back on that?
I only say that from the standpoint of maybe just rewording the exception of custom homes, or make the exception based on the fact that they're held to a higher standard. Is that what you mean?
Do you understand? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
One additional item, if I could, Madam Mayor, council members. It was briefly mentioned, it wasn't in the writing of your report, but we have seen actually a strong interest as of late in the turf conversion activity. We have a handful of communities that have reached out to us with conceptual plans. They're working with CWD trying to figure out minimum standards with regards to the plans and whatnot. But one of the questions that's come up repeatedly is our fees that we charge for that. And it was briefly mentioned in the verbal report to you this evening, but one of the comments that we've been discussing, been focused on internally is, should we maybe look at reducing, if not waiving, our fee requirements in order to encourage the turf conversion within these parkways, because it can be fairly expensive. We certainly can't dictate that to CVWD and their fees, but I'm just wondering if that might be something worth considering, so that we can again be promoting and encouraging with the communities out there that that's one option, that we can do that review process again, either at a reduced rate or possibly even waive that expense altogether.
What, give me an example of what it would, how much it would cost us.
Well, it depends on.
Well, just give me, is it on square footage or?
I would say that a typical parkway, it could be in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $1,500 in cost to go through that review process with us.
Plus then you're buying the artificial turf and having it, that's just the city process.
That's just our fee for, if that's what you're asking, that's just for our costs for our fees. And the thought is, we'd rather see if that's of the support of council, to see that $1,000 or $1,500 go towards the actual conversion, not, I guess as a contribution to our efforts to try and see that that conversion occur as.
I'd like to agendize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a business item?
In particular, if we can put a timeline so it becomes an incentive,
Well, and it's.
and we understand the fiscal impact to us, but the reality, if we can become an incentive, we give it a timeline.
Like February of next year, or until the
or
mandate
before,
changes.
yeah, and so it becomes an incentive. I think it would be worthwhile looking
I'm
into
up for
it.
that, you up for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great, I'd like to understand the financial aspect.
Yeah.
Some cities are giving rebates for removal of turf. I think Palm Desert put something together in that regard, but if we could remove the fees for removal of turf, I think that's a good start for us.
Okay, great.
Given
Thank
the
you.
physical
Absolutely.
impact.
Not any money.
Thanks for bringing that to us.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And if I could, just the third strategy, do we want to look at converting the campus to potable water? Just give you a report back on the cost of doing that?
I would like to see that.
Yes.
We
Okay.
can't be
All
out
right.
there
Please.
mandating.
That'd be great, with our lake,
With our.
and, somehow to use non-potable water for that, that'd be great, if you guys
Okay.
could work
we'll
out
do that.
miracles.
So we reduce the turf, we enlarge the lake, and it actually is a net gain in terms of efficiency, right?
Because it's
Possibly.
Yet the perception is how we see
Yeah.
it and message it. We've been there.
Do we have a timeline in reactivating that pipeline that to the resort that we can?
I heard that they were moving forward. That's in
Okay.
this year's capital project budget for them. So it should be happening
Because,
pretty soon.
those of us that have been here know, these times come and go.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been through droughts before, and so if that comes in and we can hook up, maybe it's gone, the drought's gone next year, but it'll be back. So if we're using, non-potable, I think that'd be great for us.
Yeah, we'll be good stewards in the
Good
long run.
stuff, exactly.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I think some of you stay. Who stays? Study session item number 2, discuss aesthetic condition of Highway 111 corridor. Stick around long enough, come back. I need to get more water.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, Highway 111 is clearly the heart of our retail corridor for the city, and obviously the visual condition of that corridor really can set the tone for that experience as you drive down the corridor, either east or westbound. I think a key factor is that was considered in the late 2007-2008 time period, which resulted in the establishment ultimately of design guidelines in 2011 that really focused on landscape standards for both the parkway and medians. And if you recall back then, most of the median area was actually unimproved at that time. It was dirt. It also resulted in the establishment of design criteria for certain intersection improvements. So for example, at Washington and 111, there was a combination of surface treatment proposed as well as some landscaping primarily focused on date palms at the four corners of that intersection. It also included some directional signage being established along the corridor and entry signs being refreshed. Our two entry signs, the one at there near Home Depot as well as the one at Point Happy. Subsequent to that, the median landscape improvements were completed. About 80% of the existing median stretch along Highway 111 was either rehabilitated or new landscaping was established. And though the list of improvements was rather extensive, and you may have noticed they're still listed actually in the CIP, we haven't been able to proceed with that basically due to lack of funding. The guidelines that were established included 8 objectives: creating a unique landscape, reducing water consumption, prohibiting or significantly reducing turf, creating a recognizable landscape hierarchy, creating wayfinding signage program, minimizing maintenance requirements along the corridor, retaining existing landscape character where possible, and then with regards to trees, focusing on a precedence of the trees over actual building signs of buildings along the 111 corridor.
Yes, a quick side note, yes.
I don't understand that last one, and I made a note about that, but the
Fire Council chose bigger trees than signs.
the signs and the trees. What are you saying there?
Well, there are definitely within the parkway trees established. I think maybe a good example of that would be in front of Walmart. Those trees haven't been pruned for a while, but the idea is to give those trees hierarchy or precedence over actually the signage on the buildings themselves. So with regards to the analysis of this, we've identified some key items for your consideration. We've certainly seen a lack of parkway maintenance over the last few years. Probably the economy was a part of that. There could be a multitude of factors, but there have definitely been areas where the maintenance has dropped, maybe over what we've seen in the past. We have plants that are missing in many areas. We also have, there's several areas that have bollards, lighting bollards along the parkway that are not working or sporadically working in different areas. And just the overall general upkeep and grooming of and maintenance of trees and shrubs in some areas is lacking more than others. We've also seen over the last few years an increase in our auto dealers utilizing the parkway as a merchandising area. We've seen, as you can see within the photos, several of them, in fact all 3 of them are using the parkway area, both public and private, for vehicles to be established, as well as an increase in banner usage and other type of displays in those areas that are encroaching into the public part of that as well. And I think one of the biggest noticeable factors as you drive our 111 corridor, the parkway, is the extensive use of turf. There are several areas that are much older, and those areas especially are quite heavily focused upon turf versus some of the newer areas, like for example in front of Costco, that's actually a turfless design. Washington Park in front of Target has limited turf in pockets, but the older areas especially have a high dependence upon turf. So we've proposed some action steps for your consideration this evening. We believe that educating the property owners of the guidelines, certainly is something that could be beneficial to let them know that the interest of the city is to see the removal of turf, or at least a significant reduction of turf, and encouraging them to take into consideration our current landscape design guidelines for the parkway. Working with our 3 auto dealers and their interest in being successful businesses and establishing some merchandising parameters for their consideration. For example, maybe actually identifying and limiting them to not eliminating, but limiting them to have key locations where they could place cars for display, and holding them to that, and also ensuring that any type of banners or those type of devices are kept on private property, not brought into the public parkway. Also, increasing our code compliance involvement and activity along the corridor as we see maintenance dwindling, if you will, and an increase in plants that are missing or dying off, that we are involved and engaged with the property owners regarding that. And then at a future date, revisiting the corridor, the outstanding corridor improvements, and also focusing in with the auto dealers to see what we can do to really spruce that up. One of the items that was not a part of the guidelines but we did spend some time on around this period was an actual thematic approach for the 3 dealers that was very, I would say, new and trendy in its appearance, really finding ways to show off, if you will, the dealerships, their vehicles, with a whole new signage program being established with that. Unfortunately, we were hoping to utilize other funding sources that are no longer available to us now at that time, and that ended up sunsetting that, or at least shelving it for the time being. But we'd love to be able to revisit that with council and if possible, even with the auto dealers to see what we could do to partner with them in the future. So with that, this evening we are looking for feedback from you with regards to those action steps identified. With that, I'll conclude my report and happy to answer any questions you might have.
If you wouldn't mind, Les, moving the slide back to some of the action steps just for our discussion purposes. Thank you very much for your report. Questions? Staff?
No questions, just comments.
Comments?
Start off with comments. I think obviously the car dealers are going to be the toughest ones to deal with. We'll probably have to wean them off of the medians there for a while. But if we can come up with some sort of guidelines, not only educational, but if we can establish some sort of merchandising parameters that would be acceptable to them and bring them into the process and say, hey, look, you know, maybe we do it 3 times a year, 4 times a year when you have these Memorial Day sales or 4th of July sales, whatever their big sale days are, that they might be able to do something like that and then limit it from them. But yeah, certainly do something like that and see what their response might be, because it really has gotten out of hand. Mm-hmm. It just really looks shabby. Mm-hmm. And they would probably tend to agree, but since everybody else is doing it, they're going to do it.
I like his idea, again, on the auto dealers. I think that's going to be the toughest challenge from a commercial standpoint. But yeah, maybe we limit to 6 weekends a year. You know, something to that effect. Give them something, but whether it be based on holidays or whatever that may be, I don't know what you guys think, but not every single day. And I like your idea too about the banners, that we calm down on the banners out there on private property only. And then we'll look at, you know, taking out some of the turf. Like you're saying, the older ones, like Home Depot and some of the older ones, I think we can easily go to turf. But my question too is, who's paying for that? If we're going to remove the turf from in front of Home Depot, is Home Depot paying for that, or are we paying for that?
It would be the responsibility of the property owner.
Good.
There is, which we could also inform them of, I've been informed that CVWD is currently looking at a portion of their funding going towards turf conversion to be dedicated to commercial. Okay. Now, granted, when you look at the entire package of what they're proposing and how they're splitting it up, and then you compare that to the cost associated with it, it's going to, as it always is, it's going to be a very competitive process. But if we can outreach to our adjacent property owners to the parkway, inform them of our guidelines as well as the turf conversion opportunity, funding opportunity with CVWD. Maybe that's enough of an incentive that they might go forward with it.
Les, when you look at that 111 corridor, what pieces are city maintained and what's development maintained?
It's very hard to discern that. Well, obviously, the medians,
Right.
that's
Well,
easy. That's easy to
yeah.
tell. But with regards to the parkway, it's a shared, seamless environment. So it varies, but there is an edge of right-of-way. But the landscape doesn't necessarily differentiate that at all. I can't think of one example along the corridor where you can see a distinct separation between right-of-way and private property. And that's not uncommon. It's throughout the community. It's that way in a lot of areas. Right. But yeah, there really isn't any way that you can visually see that based on the landscape design. It's intended to blur that line as you go along.
Property owners are maintaining the parkways. Yep. We're just maintaining the medians.
Okay, so what about the entry points? So the Home Depot corner and the across the street from the Cliff House?
With the exception of those fountains and
the dirt in front of them?
No, not the dirt. But
No, I said dirt.
You know, on the western entrance, the little bit of DG and stuff in there, that we're maintaining.
That we're maintaining? We should take a look at that. I can go request it, but there's some weeding to do. It's the Indian Wells neighbors of mine are complaining. Christy,
Yes.
questions or comments?
I do have a few. In terms of the auto dealerships, I was told at one time that in their contract with the city, they could do balloons and banners.
Yes, they have a specific plan allowance on private property for them to do banners, pennants, balloons, but there's no allowance on public property for that.
Okay, so we're just talking about the public property.
With that particular matter, yes.
Okay, all right. And then when it comes to the design of Highway 111, this is a study we, as you said, we did 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, right?
Yes, it was in 2011,
Okay,
yes.
make sure we didn't pay for it twice. When it comes to plantings like trees, and it mentions here, I'm on the plant image board, a citrus tree in the median. Do you know how many people would be killed trying to get oranges by crossing the, I mean, I think a citrus tree in the median is not, that's not a good idea. Cypress trees are they're beautiful and they do reflect what's going on at the resort. I think they're only beautiful when they're well kept because sometimes they can
really shabby fast.
Yeah. However, I noticed that when we were in Laguna at the Montage, they had cypress trees there, and they had a netting around them. Yeah, and you couldn't even see it if you weren't right on top of it. And so I just happened to mention it, and the person who was the employee there said, well, it's twofold. It keeps them looking nice all the time. We don't have to do any real maintenance. And he said, and the other thing is birds love to nest in there. And when they do, then
they start spreading out. That's what. Oh.
So I think if we're going to have something like that, we're going to keep the maintenance down, the low maintenance. On the, I tell you what I would really like to see is, when we get ready to do this on the plantings, is not to have 95 different colors with a little red one here and a pink one here and an orange one there and a yellow one over there. If you look at the median between the Madison Club and Hideaway that has just recently, been done, they do have different colors, but they'll have a whole section of yellow and then a nice section of red. Their cactuses are together instead of just this spotty stuff. That's what I would like to see. And then before we do any of this, I assume this is going before our board, ALRB, our board, if we were going to do this.
This is right. This is an initial study session.
All right, yeah.
Because it already has gone through them
once.
This past.
Yeah,
right.
I thought so. Because they can make some they can make some pretty good recommendations. That's really all. Oh, I know, one other thing. When we do this, I would love to see the pavers like we have as you're coming from Indian Wells into La Quinta, that little
stretch by the
yeah. When they get wet though, and you try to slam on the brakes because you're not going to run that red light, it's a little slip sliding away. But I'd like to see those at all the intersections. I think that would be a beautiful.
Every intersection?
Well, there's only one, I'm sorry, the ones on the major ones on Highway 111.
111.
Washington, Adams, Dune Palms, and Jefferson.
Some of those are, like Washington, if the people don't follow the little dots on those 3-lane turn lanes, it's
Okay,
gonna be really
you're
challenging
absolutely
on a
right.
safety-
We can bypass that, but maybe in a
Proud of
couple of
me,
other
too.
spots, or at least on Jefferson. Yeah, of course, we have the same problem there, but whatever. Some form of
Somehow,
identification that says you're in La Quinta. Okay, that's all.
Robert?
Yeah, I'm really hard pressed to believe that a gorilla ever sold a car, and I'd like to start with that. Again, the reality is that they need to showcase some product, and some latitude is always helpful. In particular, it's a very competitive industry. I think it is a matter of setting some parameters, but also start looking in the long term. What we can do to collaborate. Matter of fact, your point number 4, I think is we need to start the conversation, and I think the conversation has to do with the merchandising, the long-term view for the entire corridor. The corridor obviously needs to be spruced up, because we want to attract more businesses over there, and that would really pay for itself in the long term. And partnering between the city and the dealers that are already there, or the owners, I think that's exactly what we have to do. So we need to find, of course, here when you look at things like preliminary cost estimate, we're in the neighborhood of $1.5 to $2 million. Be nice to have the money. We don't. But what other creative ways are there for them to get to display some product? And again, I think it's really detrimental when people see these hoods open up with the sale signs in there. I don't think it helps them, in all fairness. Less is more, as we were reminded today at some point. So I would like to see some collaboration instead of going there and say, since they were given some latitude in the past and apparently contractually, I think it's important to really embrace this as an opportunity for them as much as for us. And in all fairness, I've been getting a lot of complaints about it. So, and I'm sure we all did because of, emails and phone calls. So
people that don't even live in La Quinta.
No, I only got the La Quinta. Okay.
That's it? That's good. All right. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding the La Quinta entry monument signs and the aspect of removing the fountain in there and then adding the Desert C.A.M in there, I struggle to understand $440,000 a piece to remove the fountain and add Desert C.A.M. I mean, you can build a house for $440,000. How can you do it in front of a sign?
I'm going to have to defer to Tim on that. I really don't know how he came up with that amount.
The contractor he's coming out here for a second.
Let me talk to you about a roundabout restriping project.
Another $1 million. But I mean, $440,000.
Well, that, if you recall, we had this is going back quite a ways, and we had a study session where we had arches over the entrances and a bunch of other elaborate schemes. And this one was the one where we just basically took the existing monument and simplified the design, created kind of a tower at one end of it. That's the photo. Got rid of the fountain, and I mean most of it was reworking the wall and then redoing the landscaping in front of it. And it's almost like you you're basically redoing the monument all
What
over.
materials
which
are you using to build that with?
Well, it's block wall construction is what they had originally, and I believe the cost originally was over 300,000 when they put them in the late
Initial
90s.
installation.
I think is when those
Yeah, I
went
voted
in.
against it.
What's that? You voted against? Yeah, 325 comes to mind.
I
as the
voted against
original
the
cost.
R too.
286 or something.
Okay, it's close
Yeah,
to
I mean, that's just,
300,000.
mind-boggling, $440,000 to change that sign.
And that was design, everything, you know, that was the total budget cost, I believe, also, so lots of soft costs, you know.
So while we're on the signs,
Yes.
given, you know, just both the components of either, we argued back then about, do we put down the Coleman Center? Nobody knows the Costco Center's the Coleman, is Comar Center.
right,
It's
right.
like you go to Costco. And,
Right.
and that whole naming of the centers is just absurd to me. Well, I appreciate what the developers are doing. People go for the stores. But just the look of these
Yeah,
entry monuments and then the wayfinding, I think really just needs to be completely revisited. If we're rebranding and having a new edgy logo, we did this to complement
Right.
the
Good
Spanish
point.
American at the La Quinta Resort. And if we want to differentiate ourselves from that, it is something new, cool, interesting, more
And cheap.
simplistic, more affordable. You can do the natural block wall without stucco paint, it'd be cheaper, right? It's kind of that industrial look.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I'd love to see something new based on our branding piece.
But that's a great idea. Figure out the branding first, then we'll look at the monument signs and find
And
some way. I mean,
wayfinding
other
overall.
cities have rocks that are just that. That can't be $400,000 in rocks. You know, and others have, you know,
Depends on if they're lit.
a cut steel, you know, and
A
again,
giant lit rock in front of Feig.
yeah.
Art
Well, we've done that
places.
too,
Like that.
you know, but, to be more cost conscious about our entry sign, so we're not building a house at both entries.
And our trees are really big. You know, driving the motorhome down the street, there's these, you know, they either get trimmed that way, or when you go down, when you're going north on Washington,
Right.
they're nice and they're cut out to reach the top of the motorhome, and then the rest of it's round. So they're very obscure looking on 48th, on Washington, that maybe they either need to be trimmed or moved to another area of need. There's some things that even when you're pulling out of a driveway, and again, this is a lot of it is shopping center owners. So exiting Home Depot, for example, if you exit Home Depot and try to go west on 111, and you're looking at those oncoming cars, those bushes stand out. And maybe that's just landscape maintenance, but sometimes they're prohibiting you to see that far right lane when you're trying to dart out in front.
All valid. We try to catch things when we're plan checking parking lots and that sort of thing to make sure sight distance is there. But yeah, you're right. Now we have a lot of mature landscaping on 111, and some of it really needs to be pared back. And we work with the property owners when it's their obligation.
And that's
to maintain.
obviously water
Yeah,
as
and
well.
I've challenged some of these property owners that they're gonna trim the trees in the middle of the summer when we need the shade the most.
I know, why do
Versus doing that in the fall.
I did that in
You
the
know,
Lowe's parking lot.
struggle with it, yeah.
Scalp them.
Yeah, but anyway. yeah.
And now that we've had some experience with some of these trees in the landscaping in the medians, you know, maybe we don't use those trees again, because once they get mature, we know what they're gonna look like and be like. When they end up falling over every time we have a windstorm.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the church is a great example that the parking extension, it is so landscaped. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's heavily landscaped, which requires a lot of water, right? But
Mostly they are palos verdes, right? And
Yes,
then,
yes.
I believe, and I believe they were put in place so that you couldn't see the cars from while driving down the street. So there was a mitigating factor. If I may ask, this plan over here, if memory serves me well, this was never put through the IRB and the Planning Commission.
Yeah, they looked at it.
Was it?
Not the
As I
planning
remember.
commission, but.
Okay.
If I could, there was preliminary conversation with the Architecture Landscape Review Board But there was not a formal review by the Planning Commission and a recommendation to council. It went directly to council.
And of course, we have on both boards, we have people that have extensive experience with plans. And I would have to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Franklin. It's too complex. It's too much going on. We have that visit up in the Northern Parkways with some of the commissioners a few months ago, and there wasn't the discussion that we had. There were fewer, maybe 10 pieces that were discussed at the time. I don't remember the names. I'm really know red flowers and yellow flowers.
It was
and I don't know lantana. Okay, so I think we need to take advantage of that and go back. And since we are re-evaluating the whole thing, from the monuments to the wayfindings, which were never a big hit back then in 2011 when they were presented to council. The wayfinding signage was, there was not really a big consensus on that. I would say that since we are doing that and we are revising or looking at other opportunities, let's look at really at what plans we can have in the long term that doesn't add the cost to our budget for maintenance in particular. Well, low maintenance, low water, beautiful.
And we actually have two different plant palettes on Highway 111 medians. We have the older, Lance, La Quinta Lush, if you want to call it, from the western city limits to about Adams. And then when we did the guidelines, we used those for the portion from that point over to Jefferson Street. And that section is where you have more of the drought tolerant, but that's where we used the artificial turf. We kind of mimicked the resort because we put the Italian cypress in there and a couple of other plants that kind of mimic their plant palette. So that's what you have out there right now. The newer section is following the guidelines. The older section is what we had as a standard before. So, and then, like you said, when we met in North La Quinta, we're looking at basically a reduced palette, closer probably to what the older section of Highway 111 has, but maybe with the plants group tighter and more hardscape stuff in between. So we'll have that to look at here in a couple of months. And
they're digging.
They are.
They're digging.
Yes.
I saw that. Right. Thank you.
So do all those ideas and concepts resonate with all of you? Have enough to go with? On the car dealerships, I think initial communication and discussion needs to start happening, that we need to start tightening the vices a bit and give them warning of that. And I do like the idea of more event-based or holiday-based on sales, so it's a noticeable difference versus a consistent. I mean, sometimes they're so far out on the curb, if you're driving too close to the curb in the right lane, you're going to hit them. And it's a safety issue, and it doesn't look good.
You don't notice it.
Yeah. No, you do notice it, but not in a good way. And when they're driving on that, coming and going, it's just not good for pedestrians. I think we need to start taking some kind of action on communication and enforcement and compliance and.
So if I could, just to summarize, we'll focus in on reaching out to the 3 auto dealers, talking with them about the merchandising that's occurring out there to get basically let them know they need to pull that off, and we need to work out a strategy, be it seasonal or limited 1 or 2 vehicles, whatever that might be, but we need to start that dialogue and discussion and see what can come of that. I also heard focusing, doing a revisit on our design criteria. That's something we'll have to look at, because obviously there's a cost factor associated with that, but we'll look into that and report back to you regarding that as well. And then again, we'll focus in on maintenance. It's definitely site distance related issues, because I agree, I actually pulled out of that intersection Monday morning, and it was a challenge to see. And we'll also just look in general, not just at site distance locations, but throughout with regards to maintenance. And we'll also see what we can do to maybe educate those parkway owners with regards to CW's turf conversion, and see if there's an opportunity for them to, if they want to explore some landscape, desertscape design coming forward.
Great.
Are we doing group meetings with all of those corridor developers that just similar to like the commercial brokers meeting on economic development? Are we getting together with them on some of these conservation measures at all? Not really?
Well, we've reached out in the past to the different brokers. We have reached out in the past and continue to dialogue with the brokers.
Right. I'm saying get all of those center owners along the corridor together.
A lot of the center owners are REITs that don't, they're not here.
Okay.
So
we can deal with the management of those.
We can deal with the management, but to be honest, a lot of them are LA, New York, and elsewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. All right, we'll deal with the management, I guess.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing, we have none this evening. We'll move on to departmental reports, and I know the city manager wanted to provide an update on the city intern and volunteers report he provided.
Nothing really to update. We're just laying out some parameters there and seeing what the pleasure is. If the council has a consensus, then we'll move forward in fashion and implement a program to that manner.
Feedback for Frank. Christie.
I do have some. I posed this question to Frank. It seems that with our current structure of not paying the interns, we are probably not able to compete as well as the cities that do pay. And it looks like there are 5 of them here who have interns and they do pay. And if we are going to change that, then I think we need to be competitive. And instead of the $12 an hour, I think we need to go to 13. So either, my feeling is either continue with no pay or at least make it 13 so we can compete with these other cities. Okay. There you go. Robert.
I would agree with the second part, the first part actually, don't change it. Keep it as an unpaid internship. And this is the reason. There is an impact on city staff. Whenever you get an intern in there, it provides some service that mitigates the impact that has, because in the teaching process, showing them the ropes, showing them the job, right? So they're getting a good experience, and we get some minor help. The reality is that our city staff has to mentor them, teach them, right? And then if at some point we see someone that comes in and we want to change their arrangement, I would definitely do that. But going out and start paying people right off the top, I'm not really supportive of that. There is a value in the internship project, right? In the internship process. It used to be that you would go out during school and get that experience, right? And that would be a way to build up not only knowledge but networking and character and all that. And going out and say, hey, now we're going to pay you to come here and teach you, I think it sends the wrong message, honestly. And I'm glad that other cities are doing it. But frankly, I would like to stay, since we do fit the criteria of the U.S. Department of Labor, I would say don't change it.
John.
That's my
question. So I understand this correctly. If they're to get paid, they have to belong to one of these schools?
No.
No. So we can pay them if we want. They don't have to belong to one of these schools that were mentioned in the staff report.
Correct. This is the schools that we've listed here are ones that we've reached out to date and have an internship program with, or ones that we're looking to add, and that would be unpaid. So far, we've had 2 interns, and Rita just has a 3rd one that's coming on board. So we haven't had a vast intern program to date under my watch.
And I would just recommend, I somewhat agree with Robert too, that it's basically an experience type thing. But maybe if there's some sort of gas stipend or something like that, to where, maybe it's $50 for 10 hours of work or something like that, they would at least get their gas money paid for, coming and going. And if they go out to lunch, they have some lunch money or something, but not necessarily a per hour or per diem type paid thing.
Lee.
Well, first, I appreciate what you guys did on the IRS and the regulations and the rules regarding payment and non-payment. I appreciate that, and hopefully you guys have checked as well with the state of California and its rules and regulations. State is a little bit more onerous than the federal in regards to labor payments. The aspect of it, I love the intern program. I think it's a great program. Our kids need these programs to give them a little bit of a leg up in their own competition for jobs. I will leave it to you guys on what needs to be paid and what doesn't need to be paid. You know, that's just your call. Just as long as the state of California is happy and the federal government's happy, I'll leave that to you guys.
Well, since it's sort of our call, whether how we want to do this. Lee?
Well, I mean, you know, the aspect of you get what you pay for. So is that applied to these interns? I don't know. I have, as an employer with the millennials and whatnot, it's a rather challenging group. You will find some interns that really respect and appreciate what they're learning and working with you guys. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity they have to work with you guys. Whether they appreciate that and realize that, I don't know. Given that they do, then they're here to learn from you guys. And I would tend to want to pay them something for their time. I mean, whether it's $10 an hour or 13, I mean, $13 for a graduate student, that's pretty much minimum. You know, I mean, they're pretty far up there. We won't talk about what I got paid out of college, but
how much did you get paid for your first internship?
my first, I was getting $7 an hour.
Zero. Zero.
$7 an hour. But I think you paid something. Give them something. Give them, you know, something to get there. Give them lunch. You know, I don't want to say lunch money. I mean, these folks are much older, and I mean graduate students or college students. So given the California gives you an opportunity not to pay them, that's one thing, but give them something to cover their cost. That's all I would ask. I mean, whether it's $13 an hour, that's minimal, you know, for someone of that expertise and someone that appreciates what they're learning. You're not going to get someone that you guys want to keep at $13 an hour that's looking for a full-time job, but I think $13 an hour gives them something to cover the cost and allows them to learn from you guys. And I think it's a huge learning opportunity for them, and I think those that will use it will appreciate it. Does that give you any direction?
Well, I don't think we should be paying the intern. First of all, I think it's a two-step process. Number one, we've been able to accommodate, with the exception of the Public Works internship program, which is very structured, and through the high school, so there's not an expectation of payment, and that's something that they're expressing interest in. We need to set different criteria. We need to set criteria on how many interns would we want, because it's kind of been based on them approaching us, and do we have a means to take them, and who's going to work with them, and what projects will they have. So I think if we put out that we have a paid internship program, we're going to get a lot of people out there that aren't going to be applicable to what maybe we're looking for or have the capacity.
We wouldn't go in that direction. We only allow that. This is not like we're hiring people to come in and just fill space. Our intern program, as we've had it to date, is very structured. And we assign specific tasks for them to do because we want to make it worthwhile, and we also want to make sure that we don't have people putting burden on our staff time to do things. So the criteria that we've been working with to date, certainly we've reached out to the universities because we figured it's our job to mentor people to get into this business because they're really not doing that anymore. And so the thought we were having about the paid part was really a situation of fairness and just seeing if it made sense to you. We will continue to do the intern program through the universities as part of their educational program. It was just the point of going to the next step of, does it make sense to entertain providing some stipend, some pay to do that in these economic times?
You know, I guess I would look at, I agree with Robert in terms of the cost is really upon us to execute this additional person who is here to gain experience, to either because they have an interest and or because the school, they need the community service hours to do it. And I think you'd get somebody a lot more dedicated, perhaps, that is committing to the 10 weeks or however long it is who's not getting paid, who is understanding that they're here for the true reason of gathering as much as they can from this organization to carry them forward. Now through the CVEP program, Workforce Excellence, when they have their Healthcare Connection interns, it's a $6,500 fee for a company to have an intern come to their business. So, and I don't know how much of that the student actually gets. I think some of it goes to the administrative piece at CVEP, but to have an intern at JFK, for example, is costing us $6,500 for that 10 weeks. We have to put them through orientation, we have to do reports for them, we have to evaluate them, we have to work with them and train them on schedules and projects. So we're putting in that effort with our team as they're learning, and we're paying to have them there. So, I can see both ways. I'd say if there was any money involved, and I don't think necessarily paid, it would be maybe based on what that accomplishment looks like and whether it's an end of the internship stipend that then they use to continue their education, a small incentive bonus of sorts, or keep it.
Scholarship type stuff?
Yes.
Cool idea.
That we send them back to whatever school they're going to with something from the city of La Quinta, versus an hourly or an allowance of some sort.
Yeah, from a scholarship standpoint, that makes sense.
And I'm not talking like thousands.
No, something
that.
Like $500.
$500 will be a good scholarship. It helps.
Yeah,
it is impactful.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
This is what you did. You've got a project to take with you to brag about, and here's a little. Yeah, I don't know.
I like that.
I can support.
So
we'll see what you guys can put together in that regard. That'd be cool.
And again, it's not budgeted, so this will
right.
be
Maybe next year.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking nominal amounts, a couple of a year.
Sure.
Maybe 5 at the most.
It can come out of our grant. It can come out of our grant fund, potentially.
Could it?
Well, it's not a legitimate 501c3 criteria, but if we didn't spend all of the grant money the last year, I'm saying that if you look at a little overage, there's, reallocation. Reallocation.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Frank one question, if I may. Do you feel that we have the ability to be as competitive as we should to get the best interns when they're not getting paid anything?
I have no real sense of that because, again, in the 3 years I've been here, we've had 2 interns.
Okay.
And so it's been more of we've had special projects, so we've reached out to Cal State San Bernardino. For a while there, we were having a conversation with Riverside to say, okay, we need to have this done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have people that this would align with, and how can we grow a program?
Okay. Well, I like the scholarship idea. I just think you have to give them something. I mean, again, this is our, paying it forward a little bit by training someone, and they're helping us at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Had one other item under the city manager report, and basically we're nearly at the summer season, and in years past, at least as long as I've been here, we have gone dark for council meetings. We'd like you to think about going dark on August 18th and September 1st, and then coming back again on September 15th. You'd have to take a formal action to do that, but I raise that now, and if that would make sense, then we'd bring that back on July 7th, I believe it is.
It's the 7th.
If I may?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My number one concern there is Silver Rock. I mean, there's a lot of issues in the air right now regarding Silver Rock, and I think being gone at that particular point in time for a month, basically 4 weeks, could create an issue where we need to deal with things on Silver Rock right now.
Actionable items that we're anticipating?
I don't know. I mean, in the past, in the previous years, we were dark, and the second meeting of August. And then the first meeting of September was added at just, I don't know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago maybe. But my biggest concern, if we need to deal with something on Silver Rock, we need to deal with it right away and not wait.
If I may?
Well, yes.
How we've handled this in the past is that we have, as long as I've been on council, we've used these dates. And then if we have to have a meeting, we just call a special meeting.
Correct.
And we contact everyone who's here. But what I would like to see, actually in some fairness to us, I would like this decision to be on a May agenda so that, for example, if, I don't know, I want to go to the beach or something, it's way too late to do that now. So if we did want to take some vacation time for a little bit, we need some advance notice to tickets to fly somewhere. I mean, it's just, I think it's a little unfair for us to do this at the last minute to ourselves.
I anticipated since the 6 years I've been on council, we've done this every year, so I booked my time accordingly.
Well, you did.
But I would support continuing with this practice of canceling these 2 meetings, knowing that we have, based on progression of activity, we can call a special meeting.
You know, the August calendar, I've got to be in class, but I'll be okay the first week. Okay.
So I think
Majority.
direction is our normal break.
Okay, then I guess we can
Unless-
for both of them?
Yeah. So we can bring that back on an.
Yes, we'll bring it back on the consent calendar next meeting.
Perfect.
And in the 6 years you have experienced this practice, how many special meetings have been called?
One.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
you know.
yeah.
Thank you.
But if we have to, it's there.
Right. And because we had advanced planning and we did have vacations planned, we still worked around, you know, everybody's kind of calendar for that one meeting.
Yeah, in all fairness, I've been against it from day one, so it's just.
You've been against taking the break?
The second one.
Oh.
The September one, but either way.
I'm conflicted
If we need
myself.
to, we need to. I'm just worried about some of them.
Okay. All right, let's see, city attorney, anything more?
Nothing to report other than the email I did send all of you, just advising you of that one California Supreme Court case, just to update you on it. Although it was specifically addressing an inclusionary ordinance up in San Jose, there is language in there that is helpful for cities in reaffirming their scope of their powers under their police power and the ability to have land use controls. So I did want to forward and update the council on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. City clerk, anything else?
I was going to ask you to do that.
Nothing additional? Okay, community development.
If I can on community development,
Yes.
or community services. I'm sorry. Sorry, Les.
Anything on community development?
Community.
Okay. Go.
Totally messed you up. I apologize. Community Service Department. The events going on at Colonel Mitchell Page is a Friday Night Lights. And it looks like, you know, from 14 to 15, membership is up substantially, to 575. That's fantastic. Do we have any other programs going on inside Colonel Mitchell Page other than out in the field?
Not this summer. We will resume those programs this fall.
Okay.
We actually will have both library and recreation programs there.
Okay, great.
And on the Friday Night Lights, this is their second season. They just did a startup last year. It was so popular. They've got a ton of returns, and then they added additional teams because I did their opening with them.
Great participation.
Both girls and boys play.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
All right. Public. Now you want community development? Public Works? Do you have anything for community development?
No.
Lee?
Go ahead. Les, do you have something?
I do, yes. I wanted to actually, with honor, I wanted to introduce you to the latest addition to our Community Development Department staff. We were very successful in finding Mr. Gabriel Perez to fill the position of planning manager here for the city. So just a little bit of background. I'm going to come up and give you a few words, but just as a matter of background in advance of doing that, Gabriel comes from a long history here in the Coachella Valley. He had a hiatus for a short while and ventured to the city of Riverside, where he worked for about 1.5 years. But prior to that, he had a fairly long stint of employment with the city of Coachella. He's a local resident, has a lot of exciting hobbies and activities you may want to quiz him about. But with that, I'll ask Gabriel to come up and say a few words to you.
Please. Yeah, great. Welcome, Gabriel.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Gabriel Perez, so I'm your new planning manager. Happy to be here, and I just ended my work with the City of Riverside just last week, so I just had a short break. But I'm excited to be here and serve the residents of the city and learning a lot from Les Johnson, being here with the Community Development Department. I'm not sure if you have any questions for me in my background, but I was with the City of Coachella for about 9.5 years. I served there as associate as well as a senior planner. After that, I moved on to the City of Riverside as the principal planner, and so I was responsible for managing the public counter teams as well as the planning and development projects teams, and so it was a pretty busy task over there.
Well, since Les prompted us, what do you like to do for fun?
You know, a lot of sports, and I'm also an artist too, so I engage a lot of arts, so like sculpture, painting, so.
Other questions?
Where'd you go to college?
I went to UCLA, so I went there undergrad and graduate school.
Cool.
Stayed graduate school.
Well,
and
you're a lucky
planning.
man. You're working under a smart guy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Lucky guy.
And how long have you been on board?
Since yesterday.
Oh, so can't get an
So I'm still
assessment yet.
learning a lot. Yeah, trying to learn as much as possible very quickly.
So after this meeting and you've sat through all of this and everything, are you coming back tomorrow? Okay, all right.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard.
Welcome.
Where do you live, Gabriel?
I live around Mirage.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
And I do have some family in La Quinta, so I have my 2 brothers here, and then my dad used to live in La Quinta as well.
Great.
It's a better drive now than before.
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of yeah.
Wonderful. Public Works. Nothing more to report? Okay. We'll move on to mayor and council member items. Mayor Pro Tem, anything for you?
Just one thing. Oliphant Aviation had their grand opening, if you will, for the hangars that they're building at the Jackie Cochran Airport. They are building 14 hangars of different sizes. You may buy one if you like, and then lease it out yourself. They'll help you with that program. And also just to tell you that the terminal is under construction, their new terminal building. So we're very excited about doing that. So
What are they going to do with the old terminal?
that's a good question. They're making it into, I'll have to find out. So they told me, but it just kind of, but it's going to remain where it is, but just maybe a lecture room or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'll find out.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize the loss of Ed Alderson. We lost a good man there, and he was a huge support for the city of La Quinta, where his time on the planning commission and the projects that he built here in La Quinta with Point Happy and others. Ed was a great man and a real loss to his family as well as the community in La Quinta.
Agreed. 4 of us were fortunate to attend the La Quinta High School graduation.
Yes.
And what an accomplished group of students. It was weather cooperated. I actually had a jacket on. It got a little cool towards the end. But really proud to be part of that ceremony and with the polished speakers, support from the parents, and it was really just an enjoyable way to end the season, knowing the kids in some of the schools they're going to be attending. Yeah, get them back in our area. Yeah. Okay, we're doing speed reports and informational items from your committees. So Christy, I'll allow you to go first.
Sunline meets next week, and then my CV meeting, Coachella Valley Mountain Conservancy, is not until second week of July.
You win.
Yep.
Robert.
So if it has to be speedy, just 3 items from Riverside County Transportation Commission. We did pass the budget. One of the things that was in the budget was a 46% increase in rail maintenance and operation at $26.3 million. Mainly because of the Paris Valley line will become operational, but also additional consulting services for the Coachella Valley train. So that's positive for us. The other aspect, so the budget passed. The other aspect, we approved $3 million in local transportation funds for Sunline. Apparently, well, they needed an emergency loan and a bridge loan because they cannot access some funding due to I believe it's Yeah, so.
Department of Labor is holding.
The Department of Labor is holding up the funds, and so they needed urgently $3 million. Was an item that was added to the agenda and passed. We did take a position against SB 39 for the following reason. This bill would allow to increase the so-called green stickers from 70,000 to 85,000. And those green stickers allow, gas efficiency car or hybrid, or electric cars to travel at a discounted rate on toll roads, and also sometimes no fee at all. That creates a problem because, for example, the I-15 was approved based on the bonds being paid down from the toll roads. So again, these vehicles are still a car.
Right.
They still have impacts on the road. They still, function as a car. And so all this feel good about it is great, but the reality is that they're still a car, and we took a position against it. So SB 39, that was the deal. And that's it. Speeding up.
Lee.
I have two. One is the CVAC Public Safety Committee agenda, and the biggest thing there was regarding the issue of human trafficking. And they have a new sign and poster that is supposed to, currently today, supposed to be in all restaurants, all bars, all hotels, all train stations, and every place else. And this is already supposed to be there. Now this just came out. So the police department, I believe, has these to give out, but City Hall as well, that these are now required regarding human trafficking. Also, as I mentioned, there was the aspect of the Prop 47 where it made a misdemeanor to steal a gun under $950. They're trying to change some legislation on that failed. So the legislation failed, so still it's a simple misdemeanor to steal a gun that's under $950. The other meeting I had was the East Valley Coalition. We had our first meeting, and there we had Supervisor John Benoit, myself, Elaine Holmes, and our team was there, Chris and Ted, as well as the Indio City Manager and his team, and John Benoit's team as well. Mike Wilson wasn't there. We had an election of officers. Mike Wilson was was chosen as chairman, and I am vice chair on this. There is still some question regarding the city of Coachella, but we have a special meeting next week. The County of Riverside is looking at EDA to hire a general manager of this group, so they're going to get back to us on who that may be. But Supervisor Benoit mentioned some budget problems that the Riverside County has, so we'll see where that's going to end up. They had us look at a couple of different logos for the website, and we chose one, East Valley Coalition, with 4 members there. Given we get Coachella, we'll have 4 members. So that's still up in the air. Their economic
that little person fly off the handle of every committee.
So, the Economic Subcommittee for the City of Coachella still needs to decide what they're going to do and provide that to their council. We've got a meeting, like I said, next week, but otherwise the next meeting is July 16th, and the meetings will be at the CVAP office in Indio, and that is all I have at this time.
I have a question, okay? I was under the impression that we were going to have some input, we as a city, into who the manager, the general manager from the
Yes, that
County
I believe is the
Riverside?
meeting next week.
Okay.
That John Benoit has an individual, he's going to bring this to the meeting so we can all interview a couple of people and then make a vote on who that person's going to be.
Okay. Anything else, Liz?
No.
John?
Just a quick meeting. We had an emergency meeting with Animal Campus regarding potential budget cuts from the county. They requested the board to send a letter, which we did. Hopefully they didn't reduce those funds, but we don't know what the county's going to do in regards to funding the Animal Campus.
I received an email from a resident that I can forward to you that it was a sign that kind of the heat kills, and it's a kind of the reminder about not having your pets in the car, and wanted to bring it forward as a possible suggestion of how do we get those in the city and or in businesses that have large parking areas. Obviously that would be the burden of the business, and or animal campus wide from a valley-wide standpoint. So
sure.
I'd be
Yeah, send it over to
I'll
him.
send
I'll
it
send it
over.
over to him.
Okay. Okay, on my committees, nothing significant. We purchased some land on the CV Conservation Commission. I was named chair of the Energy Environmental Resources Committee. Been vice chair for a few years. CVAG executive meets next in a couple weeks, but reminder that the CVAG General Assembly is happening on the 29th of June.
Yes.
For all of us to attend, and my CVB is postponed until June 26th. So that's the report. With that, I will recess the City Council meeting, and we'll move on and call to order the Financing Authority meeting for Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. This time, roll call, please.
Authority members Franklin.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
Pena.
Here.
Ratty.
Present.
Chair Evans.
Present, thank you. This time, there's no closed session items, and we'll call to public comment. Any matters not on the agenda. If you have something to say, please come forward. Seeing only Doug, we will move on. Confirmation agenda, there are no announcements, presentations, written communications. We'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
There's a motion and second, please vote.
Did you intend?
Yeah, well, approved minutes of June 17th.
Oh, you weren't here, of
2014.
course.
I was not here.
So motion passes with 4 yeses and 1 no, one abstention,
Abstain,
based
yeah.
on Councilmember Ratty's lack of existence on council a year ago.
Yeah, better make that 2
Okay.
abstentions.
So 2 abstentions for the record would be Councilmembers Ratty and Pena. Okay. There's no business session or study session. Actually, I'll call for adjournment.
Move adjournment.
There's a motion and second to adjourn. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to the Housing Authority. I will turn that over.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll note for the record that all authority members are present. We'll have a verbal announcement, AB 23.
Board members of the La Quinta Housing Authority are entitled to receive a $50 stipend as set by Section 34274 of the Health and Safety Code, not to exceed 4 meetings per month, to be paid to members in attendance at every convened Housing Authority meeting.
Thank you. Move on to closed session. There is no closed session. Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Any corrections, deletions, or changes from staff or board members, authority members? None. There are no announcements. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. There is no business. There is no study session. There are no public hearings. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
We should have.
So we will reconvene to closed session. Finish our business. And is mosquito vector up next meeting? Is that when we do that appointment?
July.
It's July, mid-July? Second meeting?
I think it might be the second meeting. I think we're going to advertise it, right, Doug?
Yeah, I think it's, I just actually sent you an email today. I didn't know if it was going to be the first meeting or the second meeting, so.
Yeah, I think it's the second, the 21st.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks. My pleasure.
You know, West Nile is hitting La Quinta. We got to stay on top of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's out there.
Bill, I don't think we need you for this, right?
No.
Okay. We will report out accordingly.
Okay, that's what I was going
Okay,
to
we will make sure we
ask.
report out accordingly. And so let's take a 5-minute break.
Madam Mayor? Will someone record the adjournment time for me?
Yes. And yes, you can still go to CVEP. There's not, I mean, it's a request anytime. It'll, yeah.
Good. I'll go there.
You should have them submit a request.
Did the 347?
Yeah, well, they're up.
Oh my God.
I didn't do it.
My beans, my beans.
Do it. I actually can't tell. I don't know that. I have a 5-minute presentation on the RCTC budgets.
What's that?
So the 5 minutes presentation on the RCTC budget, and I have to do it.
No, okay.
You know how, you send out that email to all of us.